Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel and welcome to my Omnibus series. I've got so many of these omnibuses that are going to come out so that you'll be able to listen to an hour's worth of stories, which I know you're going to love. You know, the thing is that telling stories is such a fine art, and it's something that was practiced hundreds of years ago when people didn't have the technology that we have today. And everyone would gather around the fire and listen to a wonderful story. And also, what is so wonderful about a story is that personally, I think it is the best way to go to sleep. Every night when I go to bed, I always listen to stories. And that's something that parents used to do with their children. It's something that they still do with their children. There's nothing better than a good story. And so I hope you're going to enjoy this series. And before we start, I just want to say, do subscribe to my channel because you don't want to miss out on anything. Because I'm in for the long haul and I want to make sure that you get the most stunning stories to go to bed with at night or to listen to when you want to be one of those people sitting beside the fire and listening. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and let's get started. I hope you're going to enjoy the omnibus.
Dear Sarah and all your lovely listeners, Carrie de Royson could not believe she was in Venice, which in her humble opinion was the most unique, picturesque floating city in the entire world. This major Italian port that is situated on the northern Adriatic Sea, with its quintessential distinctive Venetian architecture, is made up of bridges and canals, with prominent famous landmarks such as Rolto Bridge, St. Mark's Basilica, and Doge's Palace, which are all consequently styled in what is known as La Serenissima, which quite literally means the serene and sublime, which, as you can imagine, is a befitting way to describe the all-encompassing romantic charm that Venice so elegantly beholds, that casts its expression on the map with an indelible uniqueness that makes it one of the jewels in the crown when it comes to places that need to be visited before you die. It certainly seemed like a dream come true to be here, so much so that Carrie almost had to pinch herself. Was she really here in Venice? Was this even real, she wondered. She couldn't remember a time when she had felt this happy or content. She wore such a pleased smile on her face that refused to abate, as she was so ecstatically thrilled to be here, and it was difficult not to smile the whole time, as it was not every day you were swept off your feet by a tall, dark, handsome Italian Adonis such as Leonardo, who in a matter of 6 months now wore the proud title of being her fiancé, like a badge on his lapel, that it would seem he wanted everybody to see. "I want everybody to know that you'll soon be my wife," he had boasted proudly. Carrie had always longed to come to Italy. It had been a lifelong dream of hers. But certainly to be standing here on this Juliet balcony of the stunning Gothic-style boutique hotel had to be the most exhilarating feeling in the world. It was such a magical night. The ebony black sky was clustered with silvery stars and a full moon that overlooked the twinkling lights of the harbour. Carrie stood next to her fiancé Leonardo, and hand in hand they stared out at the idyllic view that stretched out before them like a glossy postcard. Being here with her husband-to-be was possibly the most blissfully romantic thing that had ever happened to Carrie. And her friends, if they could see her now, they would be green with envy, especially her best friend Charlotte, who had told her in no uncertain terms how incredibly lucky she was to snag a man as desirable as Leonardo. "It's like you got a packet of cereal from Walmart," she teased, "but your packet of cereal contained gold bullion, while ours only contained plastic trinkets that we thought were pretty cool until we compared what we had with yours. I can't believe you met such a catch like Leonardo online of all things. This is seriously crazy. How does a guy like Leonardo end up on a dating website? He should have been snapped up a long time ago. You're incredibly lucky, Carrie. He's the whole package and more." Carrie shivered with delight as she reflected over Charlotte's words. She knew that Charlotte was right. She had picked out the cereal that contained the gold bullion in it for sure, And to think she nearly cancelled her date with Leonardo that night, when she had experienced a sudden attack of cold feet. It was Charlotte who had actively encouraged Carrie to take the bull by the horns and daringly go on this date with Leonardo, so she couldn't overlook the fact that if it wasn't for her best friend, she might never have met him. There was a slight chill in the air as a soft spring breeze blew against her flawless, perfect porcelain complexion, while her long silken auburn hair was whisked up wildly in the breeze like a fabulous curtain of gold. "It's so beautiful, Leonardo," she said approvingly, her blue eyes gazing up into his adoringly. "Thank you so much for bringing me here to Venice. This is a dream come true for me. I've always wanted to come here, and now here we are." Leonardo, in his low, husky voice, whispered, "It sure is beautiful, but not as beautiful as you, Cassie," he said affectionately, kissing her forehead and drawing her into a warm hug. "I knew I had to bring you here before we got married. It was certainly the right thing to do. I wanted you to see the place of my birth and to appreciate my Italian heritage, as one day when we have children of our own, they will be half Italian, so their mother needs to be familiar and au fait with their father's culture, does she not? Not to worry. When you spend some time in Italy, you will learn from my own grandmother, and before you know it, you'll be cooking pasta like a pro, and you'll feel as if you've always belonged here." "Oh, I can't wait to learn to cook Italian," said Cassie dreamily. "I hope your grandmother will teach me everything I need to know. I'm a keen learner. I can't believe you grew up here," she said wondrously. "Why did you ever leave this place to come to America? I'd have wanted to stay here forever and ever." Leonardo smiled. "Everyone loves Venice," he said. "I will admit it's very good to be back home again, even though I was here last year. Wait until I take you to see some of my extended members of the family in Tuscany. You're going to love all of them, most especially my grandmother. More to the point, my family are going to really love you." "Oh, I look forward to meeting them all, Leonardo. I can't wait, actually. But there'll definitely be a language gulf between us all. As you say, their English isn't that good." "You're so lucky," she said enviously. "You can speak fluent Italian, and that must really help. I wish I could speak Italian, because I'm sure there are going to be times that I feel distinctly like a fish out of water." "I'm sure you can learn to pick up Italian pretty quickly. You never know. We might even come to live here for a short while, so you'll quickly pick up the language that way." "I like the sound of that," said Carrie. "But I wish you wouldn't keep calling me Cassie. My name is Carrie." "I'm very sorry. Why do I keep forgetting that?" "I don't know. Maybe you prefer the name Cassie." "No, I don't. I like the name Carrie. It's just a slip of the tongue. That's what it is." Carrie liked the idea of living in Italy for a short while. It certainly would be a romantic adventure, and then she could easily end up learning the language. It didn't get better than that, did it? Carrie cradled herself in a warm hug as she stared out at the view wondrously and pondered about the beautiful surprises the future might hold in store for her. She couldn't wait to become Leonardo's wife. She imagined what it might be like to be called Carrie Angelinus. Carrie may not have known Leonardo for very long, but from the moment she had met him, she had known he was the one for her. It had been an instinctive feeling. Who would have thought that she'd have met the love of her life on a dating website of all things? The idea had seemed preposterous to her, but it really had happened like something already mapped out from a romantic novel. Maybe some things were just meant to be. When Carrie met up with Leonardo on their first date 6 months earlier, she had been somewhat taken aback that the photograph she had seen online failed to do him any justice. It was an established fact that usually when you met people from a dating website, when you met them in real life, they tended to look vastly different to their online photograph, and usually not in a good way either. Let's just say with flattering light effects, you could get away with a multitude of sins. Yet in Leonardo's case, he was even more gorgeous in real life than in his photograph, and even Charlotte agreed with her on this after her first introduction to Leonardo. Since Carrie's first meeting with Leonardo Angelinus, it would seem the loved-up couple had pretty much been inseparable. And certainly on the second date, Leonardo had confidently told Carrie that he loved her. She had been bewildered by his confident proclamations of love, and not exactly known how to react to this, especially a man telling her he loved her so soon into the relationship. "I don't know how you can say you love me when you barely know me," she had said rather demurely, her face flushing bright pink from the boldness of Leonardo's declarations. "You don't know me at all," she continued. Leonardo had thrown his head back and cracked up laughing. "You're such a cynic, aren't you, Carrie? Why do you find it hard to believe I love you? Why is that such an implausible impossibility to you? You see, my being Italian means I say it as it is, and I don't ever hold back when it comes to expressing my love. Italian is the language of love." "I just can't believe it's possible that you can say you love me on our second date. That's all," she had said with a little stammer. "You might like the look of me and enjoy my company to a degree, but you can't know you love someone unless you've been with them for an awfully long period of time. Only then can you know if you love them." "You have very fixed opinions on things, don't you, Carrie? You certainly know how to complicate the language of love, which is pretty simple as far as I'm concerned," Leonardo had said smoothly, his voice as rich as butter. "It's simple, Carrie. I love you, and for your information I intend to be with you for a long time," he had said resolutely. "I mean to make it my business to know everything there is to know about you, because you, Carrie de Royston, well, I've never met anyone quite like you before. You're an extraordinary woman, which is why the moment when I laid eyes on you, I knew you were the girl for me. And let's just say when I saw that golden hair of yours and realized it was the real deal and none of this fake dyed stuff, well, you had me hooked." When Leonardo had asked Carrie to be his wife, it had been on their 12th date to be precise, and on bended knee, of course. He had presented her with the most beautiful diamond ring that she had ever beheld, that had once belonged to Leonardo's father's mother, who was since deceased. She had said yes almost immediately, as that was how sure she was about Leonardo, who had come into her life so serendipitously, rather like a rainbow in the sky, after the rains had fallen, and subsequently stolen her heart. If the truth be told, she'd have done pirouettes in the sky if that were at all possible. She was so deliriously happy to have someone as charming and debonair as Leonardo. It was just too bad that her parents had never warmed up to her fiancé from when she had introduced him to them over a prearranged dinner, where her mother had gone to so much trouble to make a celebratory meal for the couple. Her parents had been ever so eager to meet the man who would make an honest woman out of their daughter, but from the moment Leonardo had walked through the front door to greet her parents, they had both physically looked rather crestfallen. It had been visibly apparent to Carrie that her father did not like Leonardo at all, and she couldn't comprehend why her adoring father, who she loved more than life itself, had taken an instant dislike to her fiancé. What on earth did he see in Leonardo that she failed to see? Later that evening she had discreetly taken her father to one side to demand answers from him as to why it was so blindingly obvious that he didn't like her fiancé one single bit. And her father had not corrected her on her assumptions. Instead, he had affirmed her very worst fears when he said very simply, "There is something about him I just don't like." Carrie had been livid, so much so that she had abruptly told her fiancé that they needed to leave at once. "I don't think my father likes you, Leonardo," she had told him, as they had left her parents' home that evening. "My father practically admitted as much to me, which is why I dragged you away from the dinner party. My parents have got such a cheek. How dare they judge you when they barely know you at all? It's so presumptuous of them." Leonardo had told Carrie to calm down, and very matter-of-factly said, "But of course your father doesn't like me. It's hardly a surprise, is it? I'm about to steal away his beloved daughter. He's jealous, that's what this is. You know fathers, they're very possessive about their daughters, and doubtlessly he thinks no one would ever be good enough for his little princess. That's how my father undoubtedly feels about my own sister Gabriella. I imagine when she finally ties the knot, he's also going to experience similar reservations. But that's fathers for you. They're the same the world over. I imagine when we have a daughter one day, I'll experience very similar feelings."
Carrie sighed. Her father was not a jealous person by nature. She knew he wanted the very best for her, but he had made it astoundingly clear to Carrie that Leonardo was a slippery character that couldn't be trusted, and she should not marry him under any circumstances. Maybe her father had a thing about her marrying someone not from their own culture, but the idea seemed ludicrously silly, as her father had never been known to discriminate against anyone before, and his best friend was Latino. Carrie shut her eyes tightly, squeezing those unsettling thoughts away. Right now, surrounded by the bright lights of the harbour, reflected so beautifully in the water of the canal, one thing was for certain: she didn't want to indulge any thoughts of her father on this night. Why could he not be happy for her? No doubt he had influenced her mother, Liz, into being deeply cynical about her relationship with Leonardo. She had falsely assumed her parents would love Leonardo as much as she did. How wrong she had been about that. She certainly didn't want to spoil this magical evening by thinking about her father's obvious aversion to Leonardo. Sooner or later, she decided, her parents, whether they liked it or not, would have to accept who it was that she had chosen to marry, because when she married Leonardo, she wanted her father to walk her down the aisle and give her away. She released her grip from Leonardo's firm hand. She did a little dance-like twist, accompanied by a few jiggles on the Juliet balcony, which was her happy dance. She always did this when she was excited, because every time things in life were going her way, Carrie loved to gyrate her hips, especially in time to music, and do a few twists and turns in a celebratory surrender to the euphoria she felt, almost as an outward expression of the joy she genuinely experienced in being here in such a romantic city such as this, that people had written about in novels and artists had come here to paint. She certainly could not remember a time when she felt more happy. Leonardo chuckled in amusement as he watched his fiancée doing her dance moves on the balcony. He was looking out over the water of the harbour and the lights from the Gothic buildings, and he could see that his fiancée was almost certainly ecstatic to be here. "That's why I wanted to bring you here, Carrie," he told her. "I had a hunch you would feel about Venice as I do. This is the place where I was born, and there is nowhere in the world quite like it." "I'm not going to argue with you on that," Carrie admitted. "I confess I thought Venice would be beautiful, but in truth I never expected everything to be this dreamy. Since we've arrived here, everything has been nothing short of spectacular." All of a sudden, tears began to spill down Carrie's cheeks. Leonardo looked momentarily concerned, as he'd never seen his fiancée crying before, so this was a first for him. As in the short time he'd known Carrie, well, he'd never seen her get upset about anything. He wiped Carrie's tears away from her eyes with his thumbs, and said, "Why are you crying? I thought you said you were happy to be here." Carrie poked him in the chest and laughed. "Don't you get it, Leonardo? I'm crying because I'm so happy. These are happy tears." The hotel suite was absolutely luxurious, in every single sense of the word, with crisp white Egyptian cotton sheets overlaying the bed, under a glorious cover with pictures of Venice on the fabric. The old-world Italianite furnishings in polished walnut, and the sumptuously decadent decor had quite literally taken Carrie's breath away. And to think that Leonardo's parents had insisted on paying for their week's trip to Italy, as Leonardo's mother had said that before they started planning their wedding, the couple needed a special break, and she felt it was significantly important that Carrie went to Italy to learn about Leonardo's Italian roots, especially as Carrie would be marrying into the family, so she had gifted them both with this trip, although by the looks of things, Leonardo himself was not short of a bob or two, given the posh car he was driving and the designer clothes he sported. But Carrie had never asked her fiancé about finances, because that just did not seem like the right thing to be doing. Earlier on in the day, the couple had taken a ride in a gondola and admired all the colourful buildings they had passed in the water, that stood up proud and tall,
presenting themselves in that typical Venetian Gothic style of architecture that embodied this remarkable city. There were medieval churches and so much more in this intriguing place that wore its history very dramatically on its buildings with a patriotic pride and pomp and ceremony that could not be denied. Sublime really was the only way to describe it all. The couple had seen the house on the Grand Canal that had belonged to Johnny Depp and Elton John's house on Giudecca Island. It had been marvellous, and then they had explored all the quaint, charming nooks and crannies that are so typically Venetian, along with taking walks down some of the cobbled streets, which really was like taking a trip back in time. Early on in the evening, Leonardo had taken Carrie to a treasure of a restaurant, situated in a rather unassuming but quaint little alleyway in a charming little side street, where bright red geraniums tumbled out of terracotta pots on people's balconies. There were locals riding bicycles with hand baskets down the street, many of them dressed in elegant Italian ensemble. Leonardo was able to find the charming little restaurant with very little difficulty. It was tucked away rather discreetly behind a green awning. There were tables and chairs assembled in and outside the restaurant, which had a cheery buzz and vibrant atmosphere that spoke of casual weekends and carefree days where trouble did not exist and life was extremely good. Leonardo's family visited this restaurant very regularly, at least twice a year, when they returned to Italy. Leonardo's parents had been good friends with the owners that lived in the apartment above their business. Serafina De Marco was an authentic Italian restaurant that produced outstanding simplistic dishes that were both flavourable and hearty, so it was regularly frequented by the locals in the area, and the prices were affordable. It would seem Leonardo's mother Estelle had been to school with Serafina, who owned the restaurant with her husband Marco, and the business had thrived over the years and prospered greatly. The restaurant was appropriately named after the two owners, hence the name Serafina De Marco. When Serafina observed Leonardo standing in the doorway of her restaurant, she recognized him at once and dashed over to him to welcome him with arms outstretched, embracing him with a warm hug, and stepping back for a second to take a long, hard look at him. "Why, I do believe you get better and better looking every year, Leonardo Angelinis," she said, squeezing his cheek affectionately. She turned around to look at Carrie, with curious brown bird-like eyes that were both friendly and warm. "Is this who I think it is?" she said. "You are the lovely lady that met Leonardo on a dating site. Estelle told me all about it." "I see my mother hasn't been scant with the details," chuckled Leonardo. "That's right, we met on a dating site. Serafina, may I introduce you to my fiancée, Carrie? Carrie, this is Serafina." The two women greeted each other warmly. Serafina was a good-looking woman in her early 40s, who, like many Italian women, was always immaculately turned out, wearing a chic, very elegant pair of navy blue chinos with bell bottoms, complemented by a well-fitting, flattering pink top, and a big, chunky gold chain around her neck. She had not hesitated to throw her arms around Carrie, as if she'd known the young woman all her life. She spoke in Italian to Leonardo, and said something that obviously had made him laugh. "I was telling Leonardo how surprised I am the way you young people meet today on these dating websites. In my generation, things like this did not exist, you know. It is so good to meet you, Carrie. Leonardo's mother Estelle told me all about you. All good, I hope. Oh, but of course. She said I could expect a visit from you and Leonardo. And now here you are. What a lovely surprise and a lovely treat for the both of us to finally meet you. But of course we would come to see you and Marcus, Serafina. Every time we come to Venice, we always come to see you. And I wanted Carrie to meet you and Marco, and of course to taste your delicious food." "Oh, you are quite the charmer, Leonardo," chuckled Serafina. "You're just like your father, you are. Now let me show you to a table, shall I? How about you sit outside? It's such a beautiful night tonight. You can watch the world go by under the stars. It's so pretty out there." "Sounds lovely, Serafina," said Leonardo, putting his arms tenderly around Carrie. "Do you know, Carrie," said Serafina, fixing her eyes steadily on Carrie, "I've known Leonardo here since he was a little thing. He'd come here every Friday night to enjoy a hearty meal at our restaurant with his family. Isn't that right, Leonardo? He was such an adorable little thing back in the day. The cutest dimples you have ever seen. I told Leonardo's mother Estelle on many occasions that Leonardo would break many a woman's heart because he's so handsome. You remember all your visits here as a boy, Leonardo?" she asked him, turning to look at him directly. Leonardo smiled. "That's right. Me and my family were at this restaurant every Friday night. When we came back to Venice, we always ate here as well, without fail. My dad always says no one can cook quite like you, Serafina. So I can't wait to introduce Carrie to real, authentic Venetian food." Serafina's dark eyes lit up with the compliment. She certainly liked it when people appreciated her good cooking. "Your parents were here 2 months ago, Leonardo," she told him. "It was lovely to see them again. Your mother Estelle was telling me that your feud with Gabriella is still going on. That is very sad to hear, very sad. How long has it been? 7 years, I believe. That's a long time, is it not?" Leonardo's jaw tightened. It seemed as if his face stiffened at the very mention of his sister Gabriella, whom he had not spoken about in years, well spoken to, that is, even though she was always present and in attendance at family gatherings. But they didn't so much as say a word to each other, and pretty much ignored each other, as if the other party did not even exist. Even Leonardo's own parents were loath to know what was going on between the two siblings, whose relationship was fractured, for they had no way of knowing what had led to this dispute that had severed the relationship irredeemably. The siblings were not forthcoming in regards to this matter that was embroiled in much secrecy and idle speculation. As Leonardo's soon-to-be wife, Carrie had tried to get to the bottom of this mystery, as to why there was so much discord between the two of them. But when it came to talking about his sister, Leonardo was pretty much a closed book, where the pages were bound together with superglue. "I don't want to talk about Gabriella," he would say. "Don't you ever mention her name to me again. We just don't get on. It's as simple as that." It was rather worrying for Carrie that Leonardo had rubbed up a few people in the wrong way in his life, and had made for himself a few enemies along the way. But Leonardo had made no secret of this fact, as if it was nothing to be remotely ashamed of. He would claim that most of these so-called frenemies, if that's what you'd like to call them, who had been former friends of his, were just insanely jealous of his successes in life. Carrie knew a recent business partner of Leonardo's had accused him of siphoning some of the company funds. But Leonardo had told Carrie that the accusations that were levelled against him had been completely false, and in fact it was the other way round. It had been his business partner that had been siphoning funds from the company. Carrie emphatically believed everything her fiancé told her as being the gospel truth. She believed Leonardo was a man of integrity and trusted him implicitly. On this evening, Carrie listened very curiously to how her fiancé Leonardo would answer Serafina's rather probing question about his sister Gabriella. It still secretly niggled her that Leonardo was at loggerheads with his sister, for she didn't understand why this was the case. She did remember at a recent dinner at the Angelina's house that she had attended, when both siblings had been present at the dinner table, they had ignored each other, and it had felt extremely awkward. After dinner, Gabriella had walked past Carrie and whispered in her ear, "You should stay away from Leonardo if you know what's good for you. He's not who you think he is." There was no doubt that Gabriella did not have anything good to say about her brother, and whatever she had to say, Carrie didn't want to hear what it was, because she wholeheartedly believed that Gabriella was most likely at fault, and the likely instigator of the siblings' problems. Leonardo was of course the innocent party, that had been badly wronged. She was sure of that. Carrie was certain that Gabriella was a self-entitled little madam who needed to be knocked off her pedestal. She had seen the type before often enough. Leonardo sighed at Serafina's question. I can't believe my mother's been discussing all this with you. Why would she do that? It's very invasive of her. Don't blame your mother, Leonardo, for this. She wanted to confide in me. She knows me and Marco have children of our own. She was asking us if we had any issues like this with our own children. Luckily, we don't. Your parents are worried about the fallout between you and your sister Gabriella. They say that you don't even acknowledge each other anymore, that you have not spoken to each other in many years. Take it from me, Leonardo, it's not worth falling out with a sibling. Gabriella, well, she's an invaluable member of your family, is she not? Blood is always so much thicker than water at the end of the day. Can the two of you not make up, perhaps? It's complicated, Serafina, Leonardo had said somewhat mutely. Do you mind if we don't talk about it now? I'm here to show my fiancé the delights of Venice, and that's what I intend to do. The last thing I want to do is to discuss Gabriella. But of course, Leonardo. Me and Marco, we are so delighted that you are here. You are like family to us. You know that, so consider the subject about Gabriella closed. You are here to enjoy yourself, are you not? To taste some of my hearty dishes that I have. Wait until you taste my lamb on the bone. It melts in the mouth like butter, she said, smacking her lips together in a dramatic gesture of appreciation. The meal at the quaint little restaurant called Serafina de Marco had been absolutely sensational. Carrie had never tasted more delicious pasta in her entire life, and Serafina was exactly right. It melted in your mouth like butter. When she and Leonardo had arrived in Venice a couple of days earlier, she had phoned her parents to tell them where she was. She thought her father would be absolutely thrilled to learn she was in such a gorgeous location. On the contrary, he had sounded frantic on the other end of the phone, almost as if she had just announced that she had terminal cancer. There had been a profound sense of panic in his voice, and he had demanded to know at once where exactly they were staying. I need to know the address of your hotel, he had said. Me and your mother never knew you were going to Italy. You told us you were going to Canada. It's come as quite the shock to us to learn of this. How can you go off to another country in Europe without telling us where you were going? Why was her father behaving so strangely, Carrie had wondered. The man sounded as if he had ants in his pants. I'm here with Leonardo, Dad. Keep your hair on, will you? Leonardo wanted to show me around Venice, and his mother kindly paid for our trip, which was very generous of her. It was a lovely surprise. I knew nothing about it. Leonardo was born here in Venice. It's so spectacularly beautiful, Dad. You should see the Venetian architecture. It's out of this world. I wish you and Mum were here to see it all. You would absolutely love Venice. But as I keep saying, why are you there, love? Her father repeated the question, as if he wasn't completely satisfied with the vague answer that she appeared to have given him. Me and your mother had no clue, as I was saying, that you were going to Europe. This was very sneaky and underhanded of your fiancé. I thought you said you were going away for a week to Canada. That's what you told us. But now you're on the other side of the world. This is crazy. What is going on, love? Is there something you're not telling us? It was a surprise, Dad, chuckled Carrie. I didn't know Leonardo was taking me to Italy. He planned it all with the help of his mother. They were in on it together. He confiscated my passport and told me we were going to Canada, that's all. And I believed him, until I found myself on a flight to Italy. It was so romantic, Dad. I can hardly believe I'm here. I keep having to pinch myself over and over again. Don't be mad at Leonardo, Dad. It was so thoughtful of him to do this for me. And such a lovely surprise. So he misled you, love. Surreptitiously took you to Italy, did he? Without our knowledge of this. If he was planning such an impromptu trip for you, he might have had the decent courtesy to tell us about his plans. You're telling me you want to marry this man? Are you insane, Carrie? You can't trust him. Don't be ridiculous, Dad. I can't believe you're saying this. You're being so unreasonable, and you're certainly overreacting. There's nothing nefarious about this trip to Italy. We are here to enjoy ourselves, that's all. I'll be home in a week's time, and I'll tell you all about it. Is there anything you'd like me to bring you and Mum back from Venice? I can get you some pictures of the harbour if you like, that you can frame and put up in the kitchen. I'm sure Mum would like that. She always spoke fondly of Venice. I'm sure your mother would like that very much, love. I would like a word with your fiancé, if I may, said Eric de Royson. I want to speak to him in private. It's very important. Dad, is this really necessary? You're not going to blow a gasket, are you, at Leonardo? He did a very beautiful thing bringing me here, and I don't want you to make him feel bad about this. Of course I'm not going to blow a gasket at him. I'd just like to speak to him in private, if I may. Carrie handed her phone to Leonardo somewhat reluctantly. It's my dad, she said apologetically, rolling her eyes in exasperation. He's not happy you brought me to Venice. He's got a bee in his bonnet about it for some reason. You'd have thought he'd be happy for me, wouldn't you? But he sounds really pissed about it. I'm not used to him being all over the place like this. I can't think what on earth has got into him. Carrie sighed as she watched Leonardo disappear into the bathroom, with the cell phone pinned to his ear, and he closed the door very discreetly behind him. She could only imagine what her father was saying to Leonardo. He was probably having a right go at him. Why wouldn't her father realise she was a grown-up woman now? He kept treating her as if she was still a kid. She was 25 years old, for goodness sake. Yes, she still lived at home, but she had her own online business that was doing exceptionally well, and she was an independent woman in her own right. Her father interfering and meddling into her affairs, even if it was well-meaning, made Carrie feel as if she was right back at kindergarten again. It was humiliating, ridiculously so, having her father interfering like this. But for some reason he really did not like Leonardo Angelinus, and she couldn't understand for the life of her why this was the case. In truth, he had never reacted like this towards any of her previous boyfriends that she had brought back home. But then again, the relationships that she had had with them had not been as intense as her relationship was with Leonardo. Maybe her fiancé was right, and her father just did not want to let her go. When Leonardo came out of the bathroom and handed her her cell phone back, he looked extremely happy and almost gratified. "What are you looking so pleased about?" Carrie asked. "I'm quite sure my dad's just bitten your head off, hasn't he? But you look as if you've only gone and won the state lottery or something." "He did have quite the go at me," Leonardo admitted. "But you know me. Your father's rhetoric is like water off a duck's back to me. I don't care a jot what your father has to say. As far as I'm concerned, this is our life, and you're about to become my wife. So he's going to just have to put that in his pipe and smoke it, isn't he? He's not best pleased with me that I brought you here to Italy without informing him first. He said he wasn't surprised I'd done this. He said I was bankrupt of any decent manners or chivalry." Carrie groaned in exasperation. "You weren't mean to him, were you, Leonardo? This is my dad we're talking about. I know he can get on his high horse at times and rant a little, but he means well, and I really love him, Leonardo. I'm only sorry that, for reasons I just can't explain, he doesn't appear to like you at all. I so wish things were different, and that he could only see what I see in you, but he seems so blind-sighted about things." "Oh, don't worry your pretty head about your father," said Leonardo, taking Carrie into a big hug. "You worry too much, princess," he said, ruffling up her auburn hair affectionately. "I told your father that you're having a wonderful time with me here in Italy, and that I'm showing you all the sights. He wasn't remotely happy about it, of course, but there wasn't much he could do about it." "I can't understand why he's been so objectionable, so unreasonable," said Carrie. "I really can't. Why can't my dad be happy for me? He was never like he is with you with my other boyfriends. It's so unfair." As Carrie thought about her father's rather unorthodox reaction to the news that she was in Venice When she had spoken to him last on her cell phone a couple of days earlier, she had felt a sizable twang of guilt as she reflected on that phone call. Leonardo and his kind mother had been so incredibly generous organising the surprise trip to Venice for her. But she knew by nature her father was a warrior, and learning she was on the other side of the world had all but ruffled his feathers. "Dad, I'm sorry," she said to herself under her breath, "but this is my life, and I'm the one that has to live it. It's not you. I know you mean well, but you can't live my life through me." That evening, after returning from the restaurant at Serafina de Marco, even though it was still early, Leonardo and Carrie were so incredibly exhausted and fatigued that they decided to retire to bed early, given that in the morning they had a busy itinerary, stacked up with all kinds of sightseeing. So they knew they needed some quality sleep, so that they would be rearing to go in the morning. Carrie happily sank between the cool cotton sheets of her sumptuously cosy king-sized hotel bed, with her fiancé at her side. Leonardo was propped up against a very large pillow, reading a map. It would seem after overindulging in eating so much delicious hearty Italian fare that had been thrust upon them so generously by both Serafina and Marco. Carrie felt very contented. She had that full feeling in her stomach like you have after indulging in a big Thanksgiving meal, when your body is contentedly full and demands sleep so digestion can ensue. Before Carrie could even kiss her fiancé good night, she was out like a light. It was a while later that Carrie woke up, when she heard a strange rattling noise in their hotel suite. Through blurry, squinting eyes, she looked up from over her bedsheets, only to see a Leonardo standing in the corner of the room putting on a blue sweater. Carrie sat up abruptly, her eyes blinking. "What on earth are you doing, Leonardo?" she asked, sounding somewhat confounded. He looked as if he was about to go out on the town, when he was supposed to be in bed with her, sleeping off all the food they had recently indulged in. They had agreed to have an early night, so what the hell was he doing up and about? She noted that there was an alarmed look on Leonardo's face when he realized that she had woken up. He was behaving rather furtively, rather like a kid who'd been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "Oh, love, you're awake, are you?" he said, sounding somewhat rattled. "Well, I am now," said Carrie. "You made quite the noise." "I'm sorry, love. I didn't mean to wake you. Go back to sleep, will you?" "Well, I'm awake now, aren't I? What time is it?" asked Carrie, glancing at her nightstand to see if she could see her cell phone. "It's 11:15, not that late. I think when we came back from Serafina de Marco, we were both so bushed. We both passed out, did we not? I have to say it must have been those 2 glasses of red wine and all that limoncello we drank that did it. We've been asleep for just under 2 hours, I suspect." "But then why are you dressed up, Leonardo, as if you're going out?" asked Carrie, unable to hide the surprise on her face. "I thought we both agreed we were going to have an early night, as we have a packed itinerary in the morning. But you look as if you've got ants in your pants all of a sudden." "Silly me," said Leonardo somewhat lamely. "I have to tell you I got a message from Serafina on my cell phone. Would you believe it? I've only gone and left my credit card at Serafina de Marco, so I'm going back there to pick it up. It's only 15 minutes away. I won't be long, no more than half an hour. You go back to sleep, will you? I'm sorry to have disturbed you like this." Carrie sat up so straight that her back would have rivaled a pencil. "But why would you leave your credit card at Serafina de Marco? That lovely couple insisted on giving us the meal on the house because we're celebrating our wedding. Well, our engagement, really. So why would you leave your credit card there if you didn't even have to pay for the meal? It makes no sense at all." "I know, love, but I did take my credit card out of my wallet, if you remember, because I was intent on paying for the meal. I didn't want them to give it to us for free. But, as usual, Serafina and Marco refused to let me pay for anything. And I guess I just forgot to put the credit card back in my wallet. I left it on the table and forgot all about it. But I think I ought to go and get it, don't you?" "No, not really. I'm sure you can trust Serafina and Marco to look after it for you. Why do you need to get it now? You can go there in the morning to pick it up." "Well, how can I put it, princess? I would rather have my credit card on my person. Things like that can so easily get lost. The last thing I need is to lose my credit card on this trip. Besides, I think a little bit of fresh air will do me the world of good. I suddenly feel quite energized. I could burn off some of the excesses of the food I ate earlier this evening. After all, I want to keep my body looking good for my wife-to-be, don't I?" he said, giving her a naughty wink. "You wouldn't want me to let myself go, would you, love?" "As if that's ever going to happen, Leonardo. You're far too vain to get fat. Hold on a second. How about I come with you? We can get some fresh air together. It'll also do me good." "Don't be silly, love. That's a bad idea. You need your beauty sleep. Go back to bed. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow, with plenty of sightseeing, and I don't want you getting overtired. I've had it all planned out for us. Is there anything I can get you at the late-night supermarket? I think it will still be open." "I don't need anything," said Carrie. "You're right. I probably should go back to sleep. But promise me you won't be long. No more than half an hour. I don't want the bed getting cold without you in it," she teased. "I won't be longer than half an hour, I promise," Leonardo assured her. "You'll barely know I've been missing." Carrie awoke with a start to a lonely, very quiet hotel room. She turned around to observe Leonardo's side of the bed, which she discovered was both empty and cold, suggesting he had failed to return to the hotel suite. She fumbled awkwardly to reach for her cell phone on the nightstand to read the time, and visibly gasped when she realized it was already 3 a.m. in the morning. It had been 4 hours since Leonardo had gone off to get his credit card from Serafina DeMarco, and the quaint little restaurant was only 15 minutes away. He should have been back ages ago. Something was amiss. She could feel it in her guts. Carrie began to frantically text Leonardo, demanding to know whereabouts he was, but all her calls kept going to voicemail, which was exceedingly frustrating for her. She clenched her teeth together in indignation and growled, "Where the hell are you, Leonardo? I've tried to text you 6 times, and you're still not answering." He had not so much as left her a single message to tell her of his whereabouts, which was most unusual and unorthodox of him. Something did not feel right about all of this. She could taste the nausea welling up in the back of her throat that made her physically want to gag, as the taste of the limoncello on the back of her throat suddenly became obnoxiously bitter. Where the hell was her fiancé? And why the hell did he have to go off in the middle of the night like this just to pick up a stupid credit card from Serafina DeMarco? She persuaded herself that maybe Serafina and Marco had invited Leonardo to stay on at the restaurant to enjoy a few drinks with them, and perhaps they'd been drinking late into the night. Italians were socially engaged kind of people, she thought, and maybe that is what had happened. Perhaps Leonardo had lost all track of time and had drunk way too much, and had physically passed out on the couple's sofa. It would not be the first time that this had happened, and Serafina and Marco were very good friends with Leonardo's family, so Leonardo was like family to them. These were the reassurances that kept playing out in her mind, to soothe the inflamed foreboding that offered her no solace, for her mind kept misbehaving as it began to toy with her by throwing out all kinds of horrific scenarios for her to unwillingly digest. Her heart began to judder as every cell in her body trembled in trepidation. "Get a grip," she told herself very firmly. "I'm sure there's a perfectly innocent explanation as to why Leonardo's not back yet." For a moment she paced the hotel suite up and down as she pondered what she should do. Carrie knew that she could not wait in the hotel room a moment longer for Leonardo to get back. Her patience was wearing thin. And what if something dreadful had happened to him? She needed to find Leonardo at once, and when she did so, she'd give him hell for putting her through so much grief, on their 3rd night in Venice of all things. Leonardo would have to learn very fast and hard that Carrie was not the kind of woman who would tolerate a man who did not let her know of his whereabouts. Where the hell was he? She scrambled awkwardly towards the closet, throwing on a loose-fitting pair of sweatpants and a sweater. She didn't bother to even glance at her rather bedraggled reflection in the mirror, with the smeared makeup on her face that she had failed to wash away from earlier on in the evening. She hurriedly grabbed her purse and sashayed out of the door, making her way to the reception desk downstairs to ask if any messages had been left to her by her fiancé. Carrie decided that the quickest way to get to the reception area was to take the glass lift to the ground floor, Soon she was at the reception desk. She could see that a very elegantly attired debonair Italian gentleman, with spunky black hair and kind dark eyes, was sitting behind a computer. He smiled up at her warmly. A faint glimmer of surprise on his face was very discernible, as no doubt he was somewhat taken aback by Carrie, being up and about at this ungodly time of the night. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" he asked her politely. "I don't think so. No, it's not. It's definitely not all right," she said nervously, her nose twitching, her voice almost strangled by the mounting hysteria that was welling up in her gut, like an out-of-control tsunami wave. The front desk manager stood up abruptly from behind his seat. His earnest eyes fixed themselves steadily on Carrie. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he asked. "Would you like me to get you a glass of water, perhaps? You look, very pale." "I'm fine," said Carrie, knowing all too well that fine she most certainly was not. She trembled for a moment and said, I was wondering, did my fiancé, Leonardo Angelinus, from room 263, did he by any chance leave a message for you at the reception desk?" "No, ma'am. We have no messages this evening, I'm afraid." "I'm very sorry, but we don't." "But are you sure? Absolutely sure?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm very sure." "You didn't by any chance see my fiancé leaving this evening, round about 11ish, I believe it was? I've got a photograph I can show you of him. I can show it to you now. It's on my cell phone. It's a picture of Leonardo on a gondola that we were on earlier on today." "Oh, yes," said the manager, leaning over to inspect the cell phone and examine the photograph. "Yes, I remember your fiancé. He was wearing a blue sweater this evening, with white chinos. Is that right? Got curly black hair, quite tall, I think. Italian?" "Yes, that's him," said Carrie, hope beginning to spark in her heart. Her eyes lit up for a second. "So you did see him, then?" "Well, I was on duty, ma'am, when your fiancé left the hotel. I said good evening to him, but he was very distracted. He appeared to be in a rush. It was about 11 o'clock, I think, but I'm afraid to say he never returned back to the hotel. If he had done so, I would have definitely seen him. I've been on duty all evening." "Oh, no! I can't believe this," said Carrie, putting her hands on her head. "This is crazy. He went to a small little restaurant owned by friends of his Italian family. It's only 15 minutes away from here. Serafina DeMarco is the name. He went to pick up a credit card he'd left behind. He said he wouldn't be gone long. He said he'd be only 30 minutes. But he's not back yet. He left at 11. What am I going to do? It's been 4 hours. Nobody's away for that long, are they?" The manager nodded. "Serafina DeMarco. I know the place well. Don't panic, ma'am. You say he went to pick up this credit card from the owners of the restaurant that are old friends of the family. Is that right?" "Yes, that's right. But he hasn't texted me or anything. It's not like him not to contact me. He doesn't do things like that. I'm so worried about him. What if something dreadful has happened to him?" "Maybe, ma'am, your fiancé stayed on with these friends of his for drinks, perhaps. Forgot to contact you, to tell you of his whereabouts. Maybe his cell phone ran out of energy, and he failed to contact you. I'm sure there is a plausible explanation as to why he's not in contact with you yet." "Of course, you're right," said Carrie. "That must be it. I'll go and see if I can find him." Before the front desk manager could protest and probably advise her not to go out at this insane time of night, Carrie had already dashed out of the hotel. The streets of Venice were well lit up at night, so Carrie navigated her way rather gingerly down the streets that they'd walked down earlier on in the evening, and was surprised by how good her memory was. Because if you didn't know where you were going, you could be walking down a maze of long alleyways. But Carrie remembered some very distinctive landmarks. Before long she'd walked down the arched alleyway that led to Serafina DeMarco. The restaurant was closed, but Carrie banged on the door and called up to the windows above the restaurant, where the couple resided. "Marco! Marco! Serafina! Are you awake? Marco! Serafina!" she shouted out. And moments later, a very tired Marco, with sleep congealed in his eyes, leaned over the balcony railings, looking down at Cassie. He recognized her at once, and managed a smile. "Hello, Carrie. Is that you?" "Sorry to disturb you, Marco, at this time of night. I know it's insane. I just wouldn't do this. Normally, I mean. But you haven't seen Leonardo, have you? He never returned to the hotel. He said he was coming to pick up his credit card at your restaurant, but he never returned home. I'm so worried about him. He appears to have gone missing. I can't find him anywhere." "Leonardo was here. He was here at 11:30 to pick up his credit card. We persuaded him, well, we tried to have a drink with us. But he told us he couldn't stay. He needed to get back to the hotel." Marco looked puzzled. You say he has not returned?" "No, he hasn't," said Carrie, her face growing white. "I'm so worried, Marco. What should I do?" "I'm coming down," said Marco. "Just you wait there. I'll wake up the wife." Moments later, a very concerned, somewhat bewildered Marco and Serafina, both in their dressing gowns, were fussing around Carrie. They insisted on calling the police for her. That promptly arrived a couple of minutes later, asking Carrie all kinds of questions of which she had no answer to. All she could tell them was that Leonardo had come to Serafina de Marco to pick up a credit card and never returned back to the hotel. "So you say, ma'am," said the officer, who spoke reasonably good English, "that your husband never returned to the hotel?" "No, he didn't," said Carrie, handing her cell phone to the officer. "See, I've been texting him all night. There's absolutely no answer. The phone keeps going to voicemail." It must have been 4:10 in the morning when a search was fully conducted by the police in the local area, looking for the whereabouts of Leonardo, but nobody could find any sight or sound of him. Finally, they persuaded Carrie to return to her hotel, and they would keep her updated on any developments. But the last thing Carrie wanted to do was to go to bed, when her fiancé was still missing. But exhaustion beckoned her, rather like a demanding old friend, that simply refused to take no for an answer. The kind gentleman in the reception had sent her up some chamomile tea to her hotel suite, and assured her that he was sure everything would be fine, and that there was a plausible explanation for her fiancé's disappearance. His kind, reassuring words did very little to ease the discomfort in Carrie's heart, because she knew deep inside herself very instinctively that something was dreadfully wrong. She woke up the following morning at about 8 o'clock, when the bright light of a Venice day flooded the hotel suite. She believed for a moment that the events of the previous night had all been a very lucid dream, but then she sat bolt upright and realized that her dream had indeed been real, and that the events of last night were far from illusory. She glanced at her fiancé's side of the bed, that was still cold to the touch, and knew at once that he had never returned to their hotel suite in the later hours of the morning. Where the hell was he, and how did he manage to get lost in a city like Venice, that he knew so very well? Suddenly the hotel room, with its glass coffee table, platter of fruit and bottle of unopened champagne, alongside the landscape portraits of Venice canals on the wall, suddenly felt so desperately lonely, and in that moment Carrie did what she always did when she hit rock bottom. She contacted her parents. "Hello, sweetheart," came her father's voice. "This is a lovely surprise. You phoning so bright and early. How is Venice this morning, may I ask?" Dad, something just terrible has happened." "What is it, sweetheart? You're sounding unduly alarmed. Is everything all right with you?" "No, nothing is all right." Carrie could hardly hide the wail in her voice. Dad, Leonardo's missing."
"What do you mean, missing, love?"
"Dad, he never returned to the hotel room last night. We went out to eat at a small restaurant called Serafina de Marco, not far from the hotel. It's about 15 minutes away. Leonardo knows the people there very well, because they're friends of his family. The people who own the restaurant, I mean. He left his credit card there. It was about 11 o'clock, and he wanted to go and get the credit card from them. So he persuaded me to stay in our hotel suite because I was already sleeping. But he never came back last night. He did go to Serafina DeMarco to pick up his credit card, I know that much. But he never returned to the hotel, and no one has seen him. I contacted the police. They did a search, but nobody has found him, and there's been no news. Dad, I'm freaking out. What am I supposed to do?
Don't you worry, love. We'll be with you in 2 minutes. We wanted to surprise you. We arrived in Venice yesterday evening. We're staying in a hotel in walking distance to yours.
You're here in Venice? Are you kidding me, Dad? You came all the way to Venice. Why did you come? Asked Carrie, not really caring about the answer, as knowing she'd see her parents shortly brought her monumental relief.
We were extremely worried about you, love, being whisked off to Venice like that. Leonardo had made no mention of taking you overseas. It all seemed extremely secretive to us, and very last minute. Me and your mother, we smelt a rat. We were very scared you were going to rush off and get married in a private ceremony to Leonardo, and come back only to tell us you were now a married woman. I know Leonardo doesn't like me as much as I don't like him, so I thought he had plans to arrange a wedding for you behind our backs, so that he could purposely disclude us from the ceremony. We did not want that to happen. I guess we panicked. You're our girl. We don't want to miss out on any important choices you make in life, and getting married is one of them. We wanted you to know, love, that if you really love Leonardo as you say you do, and want to marry him and spend the rest of your life with him, you have our blessing. I may not particularly like him, but if he makes you happy, who am I to judge? Your mother was so terrified you'd come back to America married, and telling us you had to have a private ceremony because you didn't want us around, as we had failed to accept Leonardo in the family. So that's why we boarded a flight to Italy, and here we are. I guess at the very least, me and your mother decided that if indeed you were going to get married to Leonardo Angelinus, that at the very least we'd like to be present at the ceremony.
Where did you get that idea from, Dad? Honestly, you and Mum really do know how to overreact. The trip Leonardo arranged was just to show me the place where he grew up. He was born here in Venice, you see. I know you don't like Leonardo, but even if he did whisk me off to get married, unbeknown to me, I wouldn't marry him if you were not present at the ceremony, Dad. I'd never do that. I just wouldn't. I would always want you to give me away, Dad. Besides, I want a proper white wedding, don't I? Not a tiny, inconspicuous affair with a couple of witnesses. You know me. I've been dreaming of that quintessential white wedding with all the trimmings since I was a little girl.
Well, I'm heartily relieved to hear that, love, and so will your mother be.
Dad, what am I going to do? I'm worried sick about the whereabouts of Leonardo. He never came back to our hotel room last night. I don't know what to do.
We'll be with you in a second, love. We're leaving our hotel even as I speak. What room number did you say you were?
Carrie gave her parents the details of her hotel suite, and true to their promises, they were there for her only moments later, swaddling her in their embracing arms and offering her so much comfort. The police were not getting terribly far with their investigation, until finally a body was washed up on the canal, and one of the officers asked Carrie if she would make an identification. "I am very sorry, ma'am, to inform you," said one of the officers. "A body has been washed up from the canal. It fits the description of your fiancé, and the identification of a man called Leonardo Angelinus was found in the man's pockets. He was wearing a blue sweater." Carrie wanted to scream. She was devastated to hear the news, but any words from the back of her throat failed to come out, as if she had become completely numb. All she could do was wince, as she was chaperoned to the police vehicle with her father at her side.
"Everything's going to be fine, Carrie,"
her father assured her, but Carrie glared at him furiously, and in her outrage she cried out, "You don't even care if it's Leonardo, do you? You probably want it to be him, don't you, Dad? 'Cause you don't like him.
You'll probably be glad if the body belongs to him." "Don't be ridiculous, love. I may not have liked the young man very much, but I wouldn't wish ill on him, nor would your mother. We care about your happiness, love. We know how much Leonardo means to you. The last thing we would want is for anything bad to happen to him." "I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You're probably glad about this, Dad. I bet you are." "Don't be ridiculous, love."
Carrie's father joined her at the mortuary to identify the body, and Carrie's heart was in her mouth. She couldn't believe a simple routine trip to Venice like this could end up so badly. She was glad her father was stoically by her side, and when she was asked if she was ready to see the body, she nodded her head, and a sheet was pulled back, and Carrie let out a yell. "It's him! It's Leonardo!" she cried out. "Oh my God!" Carrie ran out of the cold room to a nearby toilet and vomited up the contents of her stomach, as so overwrought she was, and raw and very fierce her grief. Carrie, her parents, and Leonardo's parents, who had flown over to Italy, stayed on for a couple of weeks for the purposes of the police investigation, where questions were invariably asked and inquiries made, and it came to the police knowledge that unfortunately Leonardo had accumulated for himself a great many enemies. No one knew what really had become of the young man, from taking a short trip to the Serafina de Marco to pick up a credit card, and then he was never seen again. Indeed, Serafina and Marco were the last people who had seen him alive, and were devastated to learn of his passing. The coroner claimed that Leonardo had been hit on the head with a blunt instrument, and had died on impact, and then his body had inadvertently been thrown into the canal. It was established that Leonardo definitely was not popular with many people. Carrie was shocked to learn that Leonardo had been involved in shortchanging many people due to his fraudulent activities, but it would seem none of these people were in Italy, nor was his sister Gabriella, who he hadn't spoken to in years, so they were all ruled out as suspects. The police drew a line in the sand and told the family to go home, as the case was now closed. When Carrie's parents realized their daughter was still very overwrought after her fiancé's funeral, which was held in Philadelphia, their home state, and was a very sad affair, they decided they would take her to Alaska for a short break, where they'd rent out a lovely cabin in the wilderness for a couple of weeks in the summer. Carrie had been longing to go to Alaska since she was knee-high to a grasshopper, and her parents had wanted to do this very nice thing for her at a time in her life when she had hit rock bottom and needed some encouragement to get back on her feet again. They felt that some quality time in Alaska spent fishing and exploring the wilderness would be exactly what Carrie needed to help overcome some of her lugubrious melancholia. Even her grief counselor had advised her to take a short break away from Philadelphia. Carrie didn't want to go to Alaska when she felt as if her whole world had come tumbling down like an entire pack of dominoes. All she wanted to do was to withdraw into her shell, curl up into a round ball, and cease to exist. She missed Leonardo so very much. As far as she was concerned, he was the quintessential love of her life, and she didn't believe she'd ever meet anyone like him ever again. She knew theirs had been a whirlwind romance, and they hadn't known each other for terribly long, but they had mapped out an entire future for themselves, which had been callously and cruelly snatched away from them. She was often haunted by the bloated imagery of his barely recognizable body that had been recovered from the canal, that she had looked at in the mortuary. She knew if Leonardo had seen what he had looked like when his body had been recovered, he'd probably be turning in his grave, as in life he'd been very conscientious of his image, and all she could do was wonder who could have wanted her fiancé dead. It made no sense to her at all. What on earth had happened to him? 7 months earlier, Eric de Royson was not remotely happy, nor was his wife Elizabeth, known by her friends as Liz, for the couple had found no redeeming qualities in the man called Leonardo Angelinus that Carrie had fallen head over heels in love with. Liz de Royson had gone to so much trouble, on Leonardo's account, to prepare a special meal for her soon-to-be son-in-law that she had yet to meet, and when he had arrived at their house, looking incredibly debonair, in his very expensive designer ensemble. She had instantly taken a dislike to him. Leonardo had enjoyed a very delicious hearty meal with the family, where Mrs. de Royston had pulled out all the stops by laying out a tremendous spread. Not once had the man had the good grace or courtesy to compliment Mrs. de Royston on her efforts that she had gone to. On the contrary, all he could do was talk about himself the entire evening, while Carrie had looked at him through dewy eyes, as if her fiancé could do no wrong.
The moment I laid eyes on our future son-in-law,
Eric de Royston confided in his wife Liz,
I felt as if my heart was very heavy, as if there was a stone inside of me. I can't for the life of me see what our Carrie sees in this man. Apart from the blindingly obvious, of course. He's incredibly good-looking, tall, dark, and handsome, and in that regard, I guess he's absolutely Carrie's type. But he's so soulless. There's no real depth to him, is there? It's like Carrie brought home someone who puts on the facade of being very amenable. But the question is, who is he really behind the veneer that he presents to the world? That's what I would really like to know.
Isn't it curious you should say that, Eric? I found myself asking the very same question, Liz agreed. I get the impression with Leonardo Angelinus that image is absolutely everything.
I got exactly the same impression, Eric agreed. He expressed how much he was looking forward to making Carrie his wife, didn't he? But I feel that I know nothing about the man, apart from the fact that he made mention he's fallen out with quite a few people along the way over the years. And you have to ask yourself, Liz, why? When I asked him why he wanted to marry our Carrie, he said because she's so beautiful. She's perfect, isn't she? With her porcelain skin, her auburn hair and blue eyes. That's all he could say. Carrie seemed delighted when he told her that, and that bothered me exponentially. I was disquieted, because he didn't elaborate as to why he thought Carrie was so beautiful. He only used one word to describe her, which seemed so incredibly superficial. He failed to mention all my daughter's extraordinary qualities, her attributes, that make her so special and unique. Do you think I'm being unnecessarily hard on him, love? Asked Mr. de Royston. Am I one of those judgmental fathers that will never think anyone is good enough for my daughter? Am I one of those? No, you're not being judgmental, sweetheart. You're expressing how you feel, and you're perfectly entitled to do that. You want our Carrie to be happy, as much as I do. I might remind you, Eric, you were as excited about meeting your future son-in-law as I was. Carrie had told us so many wonderful things about him, and her excitement and obvious enthusiasm rubbed off on us and was somewhat infectious. I was so delighted for Carrie, having met someone she had fallen head over heels in love with, said Liz, her voice now sounding subdued and rather flat, as she reflected on her first impressions of Leonardo, and how she'd known there was something about him that had made her skin crawl. But for the life of her, she didn't know what it was. Mr. de Royston let out a heavy, aggrieved sigh. You're right. That is very true. All we both care about is Carrie's happiness long term. We are both concerned about whether we can trust this man to take good care of our girl and to love and cherish her unconditionally. I'm not sure I can do that. I feel as if I'm handing over a precious, very priceless jewel to a one-eyed bandit who just ain't going to look after her properly, if you know what I mean. And that concerns me greatly. Liz looked at her husband soberly. Her blue eyes were melancholic and reflectful. I'm not going to lie to you, Eric. I was really looking exceedingly forward to meeting Leonardo tonight. Carrie had painted out such a glowy, rosy picture of him, hadn't she? She told me that I'd fall in love with her fiancé on the spot, and I was absolutely certain she would be right about that. So, for my faults, I guess I had big expectations. I was thrilled that she seemed to have found the quintessential love of her life. I mean, she's been deliriously happy of late, since she met him, of course. And then we meet him in the flesh, and everything goes dreadfully awry. I never anticipated any of this happening.
I've always tended to like Carrie's boyfriends. She's been very discerning about the men she's dated. But not this time. I wish I could say differently, of course I do. But I just can't. The man rather reminds me, I regret to say, of my late grandfather, who was a narcissistic bully who patronized and belittled my grandmother all the time throughout her life. I can see Leonarda doing much the same to our daughter, especially after they get married and some of the shine rubs off.
You're not alone, love. I feel much the same way. I hasten to say, he may well be a narcissist. Your grandmother was a very good-looking woman, but your grandfather ran over that woman's lovely heart with a forklift truck every single day of his life, dehumanizing and belittling her in every way he could. I think Leonarda looks like he could also be a bully like he was.
I'm telling you, Eric, that's what I think. I believe he's attracted to our daughter because she's beautiful, and everything with him is physical. I find that deeply troubling. It's like he wasn't looking at Carrie's inner soul, but focusing entirely on her outside appearance, and that is so dreadfully superficial. What if one day our daughter, bless her soul, happens to lose her good looks? Will he drop her like a hot potato and exchange her for a younger, prettier model, and in the process break our daughter's heart into smithereens? He looks the type, doesn't he, that would do just that. All the designer gear he was wearing tonight was over the top and in your face. Not to mention that vile-looking Rolex watch with all the diamonds on it. Well, that was tacky, don't you think? Don't forget he rocked up at our house in a fancy BMW that was shining like a brand new pin. Everything about that young man is showy, and I suspect our daughter will become a beautiful trophy wife to him that he can show off to his friends and say, look at me very boastfully. I have a beautiful car, lots of money in the bank, and a fabulous wife.
I'm so glad you agree with me on this, Liz. I didn't want to say this about our daughter's fiancé, and I feel somewhat treacherous towards our girl talking about him like this. But there is something not right about the young man. Everything about him seems to revolve around his image. Even the wine he brought us tonight cost an arm and a leg. It's the sort of wine that is incredibly expensive, the kind of wine my brother, my very wealthy brother, tends to collect.
Mrs. de Royston hung her head to one side. For a moment she stared out into space, as if her thoughts were a million miles away. I just couldn't be more disappointed in our daughter's choice of husband-to-be. I feel as if someone's hit me across the head with an ice pick, and I've woken up to a bad dream, only it's a nightmare. Now I know exactly how parents feel when their children bring home with them partners they don't like. And what can they do about it? It's too dreadful for words. I hate to say this, love, but Leonarda creeps me out. I wish I knew what it was about him that irks me so much. Maybe it's because I do know underneath it all he is a narcissist. I'm sure of it.
Well, he certainly doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve, does he? Said Eric de Royston. I think he's a closed book that contains many secrets. And if the truth be told, I'm not sure I would want to know what those secrets are, because they might just give me a hernia. Like you, I wish I could have put a finger on what it is I dislike about him the most. But slippery is the word I would employ to describe him. Did you notice when we inquired about his sister Gabriella? He pretty much shut us down on the spot, told us he didn't want to talk about his sister at all, that it was a sensitive, very touchy subject. It was our Carrie that explained to us that Leonarda had had a nasty falling out with Gabriella, who he appears to have not spoken to in many years. Apparently he sees her at every family gathering, but they just willfully ignore each other and don't speak to each other. It's more than a little weird, don't you think? I must admit when I heard that, it did sound a few alarm bells for me.
Liz looked reflective as she considered her husband's words. You're absolutely right on this, Eric. The man was very evasive. Indeed, he began to get quite abrupt with us, don't you think, when we tried to question him on his fallout with Gabriella.
He was not remotely forthcoming about her. Just said it was personal and he'd rather not talk about it. Siblings don't fall out without good reason, do they? I'd really love to know what happened between the two of them, especially given Italian families by nature are usually incredibly close. Then, of course, he mentioned he had a fallout with his business partner more recently, who he claimed dishonestly siphoned funds from the business they run together. And he intends to take this man to court. Everyone he talked about appeared to have done the dirty on him in some way, don't you think? And that in itself is profoundly odd and very questionable. When you make so many enemies for yourself, you do have to ask yourself one question, and that is why. You make some excellent points, love, said Eric de Royston. I don't think we've got the full measure of who Leonardo Angelinus really is. Let's just say there is more to this young man than actually meets the eye, and I mean to find out what he is clandestinely hiding. I refuse to watch our daughter make the most monumental mistake of her life and marry this man.
Liz knew how dogmatic and resolutely determined her husband Eric could be, but even she knew that trying to persuade their daughter not to marry Leonardo Angelinus, based on the fact that the couple did not like him, would not win them any favours with their daughter, and the last thing that she wanted was a fallout with Carrie, who was her only beloved child, that the couple loved so dearly. She understood, of course, why Eric was being very protective over his daughter, but there are some battles in life that you simply cannot win, and they're not worth fighting.
What do you propose on doing, Eric? She said gingerly. You cannot possibly tell our Carrie who she can and cannot marry. It's not your business to do so. If Carrie loves Leonardo Angelinus, there's not much we can do about it. We're going to have to support our daughter no matter what. And if indeed we need to be there for her, if her marriage crumbles into pieces in her hands rather like a cookie, well then we'll have to do that. I don't think things are going to end well between the two of them. I feel it in my gut. A prognostication, you could say. Intuition is a very powerful thing, you know, and one always needs to listen to it. My grandmother always taught me that.
Eric took a hearty swig from the glass of wine that he was drinking, and unfortunately burped. He was drinking to medicate and soothe away the angst he was feeling. His mind was a whirl as to what he could do to open his daughter's eyes before it was too late. She was naive, very callow and young, and Eric was absolutely convinced that Carrie had no real concept of what Leonardo was really like behind the veneer that he presented to the world. Liz was the one that spoke her mind out loud and said very matter-of-factly,
Do you know what, Eric? I never imagined my daughter would choose someone to marry that I intensely disliked at first sight. The conversation we had all evening, as far as I'm concerned, with Leonardo, revolved around himself the whole time. Never once did he show any attentiveness towards Carrie. He never asked us about ourselves, or what Carrie was like when she was a little girl. And that was concerning. And all Carrie could do was gormlessly stare at Leonardo through those innocent, adoring eyes of hers, as if he was the most gorgeous man on the face of the earth. She seemed so blindly oblivious to his obvious flaws. I think he would make the most perfect politician, the kind that lies through his teeth to get what he wants, to fit his duplicitous agenda. I don't want to go throwing stones at my son-in-law-to-be, when I barely know the young man, but I know the signs that make up a narcissist, and he's got them all. My grandfather was a narcissist, and living under his indomitable stronghold was very intimidating. The only time my grandmother ever came to life was after he died. He completely dominated her during the marriage. But once he was gone, once he had passed away, she was like a bird with a broken wing that grew back its feathers again and could fly. It's interesting we both feel this way about Leonardo, said Eric de Royston rather reflectively. Liz de Royston cradled her head in her hands in a gesture of despair. I just feel dreadful about this whole thing. I so wanted things to be different. I mean, everything went pear-shaped this evening, didn't it?
In the beginning we were genuinely excited about meeting the mysterious stranger that had swept our Carrie off her feet. But when we met him in the flesh, we were both consumed with feelings of grave disquiet. How could that happen? Do you think our Carrie knows we don't like him?
She's not stupid, love. I know she knows we don't like him. And she certainly knows I didn't take to him at all, because she discreetly took me to one side after dinner, and had quite the go at me, if you must know.
She did? Asked Liz, looking surprised. You never told me any of this, Eric.
Well, some things are best not shared, are they? I didn't want to upset you, love.
Oh, dearie me. This is such a mess, is it not? I had no idea we were so obviously transparent. We've messed up, haven't we, Eric? I thought we were warmly welcoming to Leonarda, but it seems Carrie has seen through our deceptive little charade. I guess she knows when we're trying too hard to be extra nice to someone. I tend to do that whenever I don't like someone, and Carrie picked it up at once. What on earth did she say to you?
Well, she said to me,
"You don't like Leonarda, do you, Dad? I can see by the way you're treating him. You're making it blindly obvious. What do you really think of him, Dad?"
I told her that my first impressions of him were not remotely good. She was furious with me. It was soon after that they both decided to leave. Carrie stormed off in a huff. I'm sure you noticed that.
Honestly, Eric, did you have to be so blatantly honest? You could have lied, couldn't you? You could have said, "Well, I don't know your fiancé yet, but I'm looking forward to getting to know him better." Did you have to tell her you did not have a good feeling about him? That must have upset her greatly.
You're right, love. I should have been more diplomatic, a hell of a lot more tactful. What am I like? I do know how to put my foot in to muddy the water and make it infinitely more dirty, don't I?
Oh, don't blame yourself, Eric, but it is a mess. Whatever way you look at it. Why on earth did the evening turn out so dramatically like this? I was so looking forward to welcoming Leonarda into our family. When Carrie told us she'd met the man of her dreams and he was Italian, I was so excited I just couldn't wait to meet him. But the moment, Eric, he walked through that door and gave me that insincere, saccharine, sweet smile that couldn't have been more false and more put on. In that moment my thoughts were, "Oh no, please God, this is not who Carrie wants to spend the rest of her life with, is it?" Liz took a big gulp of wine to steady her somewhat frayed nerves. She let out a hiccup and stared blankly into space. And then she said in what seemed like a muted whimper, "What are we going to do about all of this, Eric? We have absolutely no say in whom Carrie has chosen to marry, and we simply cannot fall out with her over this. If she's made a mistake in choosing Leonarda to become her husband, then she's the one that's going to have to learn to live with her mistake. We can't interfere into her life. I so wish marriages were arranged and it was still the fashion today, as I'd never have ever picked out Leonarda for our daughter in a million months of Sundays. I can assure you of that one. He's wrong for our girl in every sense of the word, but we can't do a damned thing about it. It's so dreadfully frustrating. We just have to sit back and watch the show go on, whether we like it or not. And this is one of those shows I just simply do not want to watch, because there are no happy endings. I think in the years to come, Leonarda will dominate our Carrie. She will become a shrinking violet like my poor old grandmother did. Is history repeating itself again, I wonder? Come to think of it, Carrie is exactly like her grandmother was. She even looks like her grandmother. Auburn hair, fair skin, blue eyes. Are they both the types of women to choose rotten men? Is it something in the genes?
Don't you worry your pretty sweet head about anything, sweetheart, said Eric de Royston. I intend to find out as much as I can about Leonarda Angelinus, because I will be damned if Carrie gets to marry him. She's far too good for the man. And I don't think I'm biased in this regard. Well, I'm lying to myself. I'm extremely biased. I'm a father that wants to save his girl from making a catastrophic mistake, if I can possibly help it. And you're right. Carrie is exactly like your grandmother. I may remind you, Eric, that our little girl, as you say, is not so little any more. She's a fully grown adult with a mind of her own, and she can be incredibly opinionated. If she marries Leonardo, we have to support her every step of the way. We don't have a choice in the matter. I do not want to lose our daughter over this fiasco. If we fail to accept Leonardo into our family, Carrie may turn against us, and I would hate that to happen. You saw how belligerently capricious she became tonight, marching off in quite the huff, and dragging Leonardo with her. I had no idea at the time it was because you had had words with her, but it was clear she was not happy. As for your saying you didn't warm to Leonardo, I've seen so many dreadful shows on televisions of family disputes going on for years and years, where mothers are at loggerheads with their son-in-laws. I don't want that to be our sorry story. I really don't, Eric. We're better than that. We need to be grown up about this. Carrie is all we've got, and I don't want to lose her, just because she's fallen in love with someone we don't like.
Eric de Royston, unbeknown to his wife Liz, surreptitiously contacted Gabriella Angelinas, Leonardo's sister, and asked if they might possibly meet in a local wine bar not too far from where the family lived in Philadelphia. He was surprised when at the end of their brief conversation, Gabriella had agreed to the rendezvous. The young woman had initially been defensive and somewhat guarded on the phone, asking Mr. de Royston what the hell he wanted. So Eric decided to come clean with her and not beat around the bush.
Look, Gabriella, I hope you don't mind me calling you that, as your last name is not easy to pronounce. The reason I contacted you, Gabriella, is that I understand there's been an ongoing dispute between you and your brother, and Leonardo was not forthcoming about the nature of this dispute with us when we met him for the first time last night. I rather felt he was hiding something, and I mean to find out what it is for my daughter's sake.
There was a long drawn-out, rather uncomfortable pause at the other end of the line, and then Gabriella made a snort.
Leonardo, he wasn't forthcoming about our fallout. That's rich, she said with a sarcastic laugh. I'm not surprised, though. Leonardo is never forthcoming about anything that doesn't serve his very best interests. Well, Gabriella, as you can appreciate, my daughter Carrie is engaged to your brother Leonardo, and I'm not remotely happy about it. I'm going to be blunt with you, and say it as it is. I just don't trust him. It's as simple as that. It's an instinctive, unsettling feeling I cannot shake off. For the record, I don't usually interfere in my daughter's love life. In the past, I have liked all of her boyfriends, but your brother is the exception to this rule. As a consequence of my grave disquiet, I want to find out more about this dispute with your brother, and what it is you obviously dislike about him. It may well give me a better insight into him, as a person, so to speak, to set my mind at rest. You are perfectly entitled, Gabriella, to tell me to mind my own business. But the only thing I'm guilty of is looking out for my daughter and her well-being. If she's found herself entangled in a sticky web, I want to set her free from it, if you get my drift.
I'm impressed. You're a lot more shrewd than my own parents are, Mr. de Royston, and I respect you for that. If my parents were half as discerning as you are, they might have the full measure of my brother. They cluelessly think that Leonardo was born on a bed of clover, and they believe every single word that comes out of his lying mouth. You obviously have not been so easily duped by my brother's beguiling charms. Most people are, I'm afraid, and as a consequence end up being stitched up by him. Because let's just say, Mr. de Royston, my brother is not who he appears to be. He hides a sinister, dark side of his character very successfully from the world, but I know all about it. The meeting at the wine bar had been very brief and to the point, and almost businesslike in its prompt efficiency. Mr. de Royston had brought Gabriella a glass of Merlot, and together they had taken a seat in an obscure booth at the back of the bar, out of the sight of many of the other patrons that frequently visited the place. Gabriella herself was stylishly attired, in a white, classic, tasteful pair of linen pants, and a matching top. She looked a great deal like Leonardo, but in a much more feminine way. She possessed a similar olive complexion, high cheekbones, and a very large nose, along with a pair of dark eyes, and carpets of thick, full black hair that was wild and untamed, but it rather suited her. Gabriella's dark, somewhat troubled eyes fixed themselves steadily on Eric de Royston, and then she said, "I shouldn't really be here, should I, lamb-blasting my brother's life like this? But I warn you, Mr. de Royston, that you should not let your daughter marry him. He's dangerous. There's a dark, negative side to his personality, which doubtless your daughter will uncover, once my brother reveals himself to her. After they get married, I dare say this less favourable side to his dominating, oppressive personality will make its appearance fully known. And when it does, Mr. de Royston, I pity your daughter, for God help her."
"What do you mean by a dark side to your brother?"
asked Mr. de Royston gingerly. Gabriella leaned forward over the booth, pressing her elbows hard into the wood, and holding her wine-glass so tightly that Eric de Royston thought the glass might suddenly shatter, so that the red merlot would splatter all over her white blouse, looking ominously like blood. Gabriella nervously looked around the bar to make sure that nobody was eavesdropping on their conversation, and then she lowered her voice. "My brother, Mr. de Royston, has an insidious, unbridled temper on him. If he gets angry, he becomes volatile like a rhino on the loose, devastating absolutely everything in his wake. When I was growing up, I can't tell you how many times my parents' property was brutally vandalized by my brother if he didn't get his own way. He would break everything, like mirrors, chairs, china, you name it, in one of his blow-out tantrums, and he'd get completely manic. By all accounts, Mr. de Royston, my parents know very well my brother gets unhinged, but they're in absolute denial about it. They refuse to believe that their perfect son is capable of any wrongdoing, so they only conveniently see what they choose to see. My brother literally falls out with everyone that crosses his path, and then blames them for the fallout, because nothing, Mr. de Royston, is ever his fault. His life revolves completely around himself. He doesn't care about other people. All he bothers about is his image, and of course money. Beyond that, he cares about nothing. I know he's defrauded tons of people over the years, but I don't know all the details of those cases, because quite frankly I don't want to. But I know he hires crooked lawyers on his behalf, and ends up winning those cases, making the innocent party look like the bad guy. More recently, my brother's business partner accused him of siphoning funds from the company. Now my brother is taking this partner of his to court, claiming that his business partner was the one that was siphoning the funds, and not him, when in reality it was the other way around. Leonardo artfully twists everything to his own advantage. He'll accuse people of what he's actually doing to them himself. He should go into politics. He'll be able to make his competitors look like the Grim Reaper. It's the oldest trick in the book, calling someone a thief when you really are one yourself. He skillfully uses charm to deceive people who are easily duped by him. He draws them right in, Mr. de Royston, like a pig to the slaughter. If your daughter knows what's good for her, she'll stay the hell away from my brother."
"So your brother is treacherously dishonest," said Mr. de Royston. "Why does that not surprise me?"
"My brother is worse than dishonest. He's downright dangerous."
"You think he's dangerous? In what way is he dangerous, Gabriella?"
"Well, he tried to kill me. That's why I fell out with him, if you must know. I haven't spoken to my brother for years. At family gatherings, we ignore each other completely. It's a miracle that I'm actually alive today. Of course, my parents know nothing about this. If I told them, they'd say I was making the entire thing up. But my brother tried to kill me, and that's an absolute fact." Mr. de Royston's face paled, draining of all its colour.
"What the hell did he do?" "He's your brother, for God's sake, Gabriella. Why would he even want to harm a single hair on your head?"
"Well, me and my brother were having an argument. I don't even remember what it was about. It was so trivial. I was 17 years old at the time. And anyway, when we began to argue, I became breathless. Because, Mr. de Royston, I happen to be an asthmatic, and I was having a full-blown asthmatic attack, probably brought on by stress. I couldn't breathe, and I was trying to get to my purse to get out my inhaler. My purse was on the chaise lounge in the living room, because I knew without it I would die, and so did my brother, as it happens, and he used that to his advantage. My parents were out at the time, and Leonardo took my purse, removed the inhaler from it, dropped the batteries onto the floor, and grinned at me. He stood there watching me, trying desperately to breathe. I was. He enjoyed every second of my suffering. I tried to grab the batteries for the inhaler. Then he snatched them away from me and said,
"Not so fast, Gabriella. I'm going to watch you die. And when Mum and Dad come back, they'll realize you died from an asthmatic attack. But no one can help you, as I wasn't there, was I? Isn't that tragic? Such a tragic loss, losing their daughter like this. That's what they'll believe. And when they themselves die, I'll get all the family inheritance, and you won't get a damn thing, because you'll be pushing up the daisies. And guess what? I won't come to see you at your final resting place, because I'll be glad you've gone. I've never liked you, Gabriella, never." "He said that to you?" asked Mr. de Royson, looking confounded. "What an absolute monster! A psychopath, if you ask me."
"Do you know exactly why I'm here, Mr. de Royson? I'll tell you. I'm here because my parents arrived home in the nick of time. So my brother, who didn't want to get caught red-handed not helping me with an inhaler, put it back together for me and gave it to me, so that I could finally breathe. My parents were shocked to discover me in such a state, but my brother claimed he'd only just discovered me, having a full-blown asthmatic attack. So my parents thought he was the quintessential hero. Thankfully, I managed to get my breathing under control. Leonardo told me in no uncertain terms that if I ever dared to tell my parents what had happened to me, he would kill me. So I kept my mouth tightly shut for all these years, because one thing I know about Leonardo is he doesn't make idle promises. If he says he's going to do something, he usually does. I knew if I told my parents what had happened, they wouldn't believe a word of it, simply because they would not believe that Leonardo was capable of such evil. When I was a child growing up, he was so cruel to me, locking me up in the shed on numerous occasions. He knew I was petrified of spiders, and the place was crawling with them. He was always pulling my hair, but at 17 years old, when I had that awful asthmatic attack, and he didn't give me my inhaler, that was the straw that broke the donkey's back. Nothing has been the same between us since. You don't forget something like that, Mr. de Royson. So yes, Mr. de Royson, my brother Leonardo is a dangerous, dangerous man. And certainly, if rubbed up the wrong way, who knows what he's capable of." "You should have gone to the police about this, Gabriella," said Mr. de Royson. "That was attempted murder. He should have been locked up for that." Gabriella snorted. "Are you kidding me, Mr. de Royson? It would be my word against his. And Leonardo can artfully persuade people that he's the victim. He would twist everything to his advantage, so I would be the one that ended up looking like the liar. You have no idea how cunningly manipulative he is. He's Machiavellian in every single sense of the word. I'll tell you one thing, Mr. de Royson. Your daughter might have been successfully seduced and charmed by my brother, but he absolutely does not love her. He's incapable of love. He's a narcissist. The only thing he ever cares about is himself. I think he likes your daughter, Mr. de Royson, because it's very obvious to me that Carrie is a beautiful woman. And, of course, she's exactly his type. He wants a trophy wife, so to speak, to show off everywhere he goes, to make other men envious. He likes that. Anyone who marries him is in danger, because if they upset him in any way, who knows the lengths he will probably go to avenge them. He just can't be trusted. That's all I'm saying." "Is there anything you think I can do, Gabriella, to persuade my daughter not to marry Leonardo?" asked Eric. "Surely there must be something I can say to change her mind. She hasn't known him terribly long, but seems hopelessly in love with him." "Are you a rich man, Mr. de Royson? Because you will need to be if you want to persuade my brother not to marry your daughter. Money talks, if you know what I mean. And if you pay him enough, he'll drop your daughter like a hot potato and find somebody else to replace her. He has absolutely no loyalty in that regard. When I was a girl, we had the cutest Dalmatian called Bingo. I loved that dog. He was an absolute sweetheart. Needless to say, when he got old and fat, my brother wanted my family to dump the dog at the local shelter and to get a brand new dog because Bingo had become old. I mean, who does that? I put up such a fight to save Bingo's life, and he became my dog, as I wasn't going to let Leonardo get his grubby hands on him. He would have probably found a way to euthanize the dog before his time, if he got the chance. That's how callously cold and indifferent he was. I always knew from a very young age that I could never trust my brother.
Anyone who's cruel with animals, as far as I'm concerned, is not a good person, said Mr. de Royston. Tell me, Gabriella, very frankly, because I would appreciate that. How much money would I need to get hold of to give your brother, in order for him to end the relationship with my daughter? I'm not a millionaire by any manner of means, but my brother most certainly is, and I'm sure he will help me.
Well then, if you want my advice, you go to your brother cap in hand, Mr. de Royston, and ask him to give you a sizable amount of money to pay off my brother. If you offer him enough money, he'll be persuaded to leave your girl. The only reason he's with Carrie is that he loves beautiful women, and being Italian, her auburn hair sealed the deal for him. My brother adores red hair. He thinks it's the sexiest colour on the planet. But he'll happily settle for a blonde woman who dyes her hair red if the money is safely placed in his bank account, increased with several zeros, so to speak.
Thank you very much, Gabriella, for telling me all this. I really appreciate it. Our meeting has been most insightful.
I'm so sorry, Mr. de Royston. I had to tell you all this disturbing stuff about my brother. But at least you know the truth now, even if it is causing you a certain amount of unease. You're going to need good luck, so that's what I'm going to tell you. Good luck. I hope everything goes well with you. Alaska, 7 months later. Eric de Royston was very glad that he and his wife Liz had come to stay in the quiet cabin in Alaska. They knew their daughter was going through a grieving process and was clearly extremely distraught about the fortuitous death of her fiancé. When Eric and Liz de Royston had heard that Leonardo had whisked their daughter off to Venice in Italy for a romantic holiday, they had been exceedingly suspicious that there was more to this holiday than met the eye. "I know exactly what this is about, Eric," Liz had said. She had been close to tears at the time. "Our daughter knows we don't like Leonardo, so she's gone off to Italy to marry the man in a private ceremony. I know she has. I can feel it in my bones. We don't like Leonardo, do we? So she and her fiancé have rebelliously decided to just bugger off into the sunset and get married without us even being present at the ceremony. That's what's going on here. We've been discluded from the most important day of our daughter's life. This is devastating, Eric."
"How can you be sure of this, Liz?" Eric had asked her. "Why would she do this to us? Why would she deliberately disclude us from a ceremony like this?"
"Because, isn't it obvious? We don't like Leonardo, that's why. I think if my parents had not liked you when we first met, I would have also been rebellious and very tempted to do much the same. I would have even suggested we both eloped, and you would have been easily persuaded by that. I know you would."
"That may be true, but are you not forgetting one important thing, love? Our daughter Carrie is a young woman who really loves the idea of a magical white wedding. She's quite the romantic, is she not? She's talked about being a princess bride since she was 8 years old. Remember how she used to dress up in your old wedding dress? I don't think she's changed her mind about having a fancy, very elegant white wedding. And I'm sure a few little issues with her parents having doubts about her fiancé is certainly not going to stop her from having the wedding of her dreams. Our daughter is not like that. She's not that bigoted."
"I wouldn't be so sure, Eric. Maybe Leonardo has persuaded Carrie to go off and get married in Italy. You know as well as I do he's incredibly manipulative. My guess is he could get her to do anything he asks of her, and she will not refuse him." Eric de Royston had told his wife to pack because they were going to Italy.
"If our daughter is insistent on marrying Leonardo, then so be it. There's nothing we can do to stop her. I want to be there to give her away," he said assertively. But if I can, I would like to try and persuade her against marrying the man. The question is, will she actually listen to me? She has her heart set on marrying him. But I know a thing or two about this man that might make our Carrie change her mind very, very quickly.
Liz rolled her eyes in exasperation.
I don't know what you've got up your sleeve, Eric, but don't even think about it. Don't get any funny ideas in your head, Eric. We cannot change our daughter's mind about marrying Leonardo, and I think you need to accept that. But we can, at the very least, insist on attending her wedding. If we get to Venice in time, that is.
Eric de Royston had got quite the shock to learn no sooner had he arrived in Venice that the following morning he received a desperate phone call from his daughter, claiming that Leonardo had gone missing, and he and his wife were glad now to be in Venice, while their daughter was in such a dreadful state. She was derailed. She had certainly needed their devoted support when she had sadly been forced to identify the deceased body of her beloved fiancé, and thankfully now the police case was closed, they could put this chapter well behind them and get on with their lives back in America. Eric de Royston was very surprised how resilient his daughter Carrie was. He had underestimated Carrie's strength of character and stoic courage. Carrie had admitted that she had barely known Leonardo for very long, and that in itself would help with her grief. I was so in love with him. I was looking forward to the life we had ahead of us, where we would get to know each other so much better, and that's all been taken away from me so cruelly.
I know, love,
her mother had said kindly, tenderly wrapping her daughter in her arms.
It really is tragic. Of course I know it is. But unfortunately our lives are not immune to bad things happening to people. But I don't understand who would want to kill Leonardo,
Carrie had said.
I just don't get it. The police said there are quite a few young people in Italy that may snatch a handbag or a wallet on the streets. But randomly killing someone for no reason at all, that's not so common. Well, maybe it's a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, love. Things like this happen. You have to resign yourself to the fact that sometimes answers to questions will never be found. It's the way of the world. There are so many unsolved crimes out there that make absolutely no sense at all. But I don't want you to worry about such things. We have come here to Alaska to thoroughly enjoy ourselves, to put this unfortunate chapter behind us for good. Let me tell you, love, better days are ahead of us, of that I am most sure.
Little did Liz de Royston know that later that day something paradoxical would happen that would shake the family to the core, and as a result, many untold secrets would be spilled, and the truth about what really happened to Leonardo Angelinus in his final hours would come out like the pus out of a boil that has been lanced. It had been incredibly good to come to Alaska, and no one was more pleased about it than Carrie herself. It was so wonderful to get away from all her troubles that had plagued her life so callously of late. She just wanted to live in the moment and enjoy this beautiful summer's day in Alaska. She'd been asking her parents to bring her here since she was knee-high to a grasshopper, but her well-meaning parents had never got around to planning this holiday until now. It was better late than never, although Carrie knew her parents had brought her here to cheer her up after all the grief she'd been going through, and the holiday was being paid for by her father's brother. Carrie had lived in Philly all her life, but had always impassionately longed for an Alaskan adventure, and had always fantasized about spending time in a gorgeous, quaint cabin in the middle of nowhere. It had been her father who had industriously searched the internet to find the perfect chocolate-style cabin online that had been advertised, designed for holidaymakers who wanted a taste of an Alaskan life, living in the wilderness, far away from everything. So they had been brought to this part of the great frontier by private plane, and would be picked up by their pilot in a few days' time, who had wished them well. This was the kind of intrepid adventure that Carrie had always dreamed of experiencing. She wasn't exactly sure if Leonardo was alive, whether he would have approved of being cut off from everything like this. Leonardo liked the urban kind of lifestyle, where everything you needed was pretty much on your doorstep, only a breath away. Carrie was impressed with how well kitted out the cabin invariably was. Even though it was off-grid, The people who owned the place had thought of everything. There was plenty of chopped firewood. There was gas lighting, an oil-fired range oven, water tanks, bear sprays, insect repellents, medications for emergency situations, from antibiotics to allergic reactions and cold medications. There was a plethora of food that could easily have lasted an entire year in the pantry, and there was a gas freezer stacked to the brim with quality produce, so they would never go hungry. The owners who managed the cabin as a business enterprise for those who fancied an adventure on the wild side had certainly thought of everything. So Carrie knew that this was going to be an indelible experience she would never ever be likely to forget. And put it this way, she wasn't wrong about that. It was on their second day in Alaska, when the family were taking a trail through the woods, through some alpine fields splattered with pretty flowers, that Eric de Royson could not shake the feeling that they were being followed, and that someone was surreptitiously watching them. "Am I paranoid?" he wondered to himself. "Why do I feel this dreadful level of disquiet in such a peaceful place such as this? Am I completely losing my mind?" He glanced over at his wife and daughter, who appeared to be absorbed by a beautiful butterfly that had landed on Carrie's palm. Carrie was smiling brightly, with wistful tears in her eyes, as she stared at the butterfly through wondrous eyes. "It's beautiful! Look at all the colours! I love that vivid blue and the bright yellow on its wings. Do you think the butterfly is from Leonardo, Mum?" she asked her. "I've never had a butterfly perch on my palm before. I mean, it flew directly to my hand, didn't it? Do you think it means something special?" Liz shrugged her shoulders. "It's beautiful, is it not? Maybe Leonardo did send it to you. Who knows?" she said encouragingly. "But I wouldn't know about things like that." Eric de Royson realized that both his wife and daughter were so caught up in the bubble of their contented awe that they failed to realize that the wood grove had grown inauspiciously mute. The birds had suddenly stopped their tuneful chorus. Everything had become airily quiet, menacingly so. Eric's worst fears came to a head, much like the pus in a pimple that you never saw coming. It happened so quickly, so fast, before Eric could even draw breath. The hair on his arms was standing up on end, and his hackles had risen. He felt something was decidedly off. And then the next thing, out of the woods, rocketing towards them at the speed of light, was this ominously dark mass of something electrifyingly large. At first Eric de Royson thought it must be an angry grizzly bear, but then he realized to his astonishment that the mass descending towards them, like a ton of volcanic lava, was the most monstrously gargantuan Bigfoot you could ever hope to see. The creature was distinctly human-looking, and appeared to be charging towards Eric's daughter Carrie. Its dark treacle-coloured eyes appeared to be fixed on her, as if his undivided attention was only focused on his daughter. Before Eric de Royson could do anything, the creature had moved in so fast and hurriedly snatched Carrie into his arms. Carrie began to scream and kick as the Bigfoot threw her onto his ponderous shoulders. Eric could stand for this no more. This was his beloved daughter, and this monstrous Bigfoot was running away with her. What the hell was he supposed to do? The creature needed to be stopped, and now. But how? He had some bear spray in his pocket, but that was pretty useless in the circumstances. Eric heard his wife screaming, "Oh, God, no! No! Do something!" Eric, impulsively, like a protective father, went boldly charging towards the Bigfoot, all guns blazing, while his wife was screaming, "No, Eric, don't! Eric, don't!" Eric had grabbed the Bigfoot and was shaking him. He was surprised that with a spike of adrenaline, he had successfully managed to catch up with the creature against all the odds. But determination can make you overcome impossible odds if someone's life is hanging in the balance, that is. The Bigfoot, with one mighty kick, lunged out at Eric, and Mr. de Royson went flying across the ground, and everything went silent, as he lay on the forest floor motionless, and to a casual observer you would have almost certainly assumed that the man was dead. Seconds later there was a huge scream, and then charging through the woods towards the male Bigfoot was an angry female. The female Bigfoot was irate, Her face jiggled with indignation. She unabashedly grabbed the male Bigfoot by the arm. Scream blew murder at the creature, so that the male Bigfoot reluctantly released the terrified Carrie from his grip. Carrie slipped off the Bigfoot's large shoulders and hurriedly bolted towards Mrs. de Royston, relieved to be on safe and solid ground. "Is Dad all right? Is Dad all right?" she cried out, as her thoughts were not for herself, but for the well-being of her father, for she had been an unfortunate witness to the male Bigfoot kicking him down. Mrs. de Royston was naturally thrilled to have her daughter back, but remained frozen to the spot, as if she couldn't believe what was happening before her. She was staring at both Bigfoots in a bemused state, and so shaken up was she, that her daughter's words about the state of her husband didn't even seem to reach her mind. She watched the female Bigfoot have a big go at the male Bigfoot, who towered above her, but she could see this male Bigfoot was right under the female's formidable thumb. The female Bigfoot was screaming at him, talking to him backwards and forwards in a very fast voice, in a strange language. He was hanging his head in shame, looking incredibly sheepish and very guilty. "Kilati! Kolopati lana! Hokasi la twani! Folokoso!" The male Bigfoot's shameful response was like that of a kid when its parents have had a huge go at it for stealing some sweets down the aisle at the supermarket. The female continued to shout at the male Bigfoot in this very curious language, and even though Liz de Royston couldn't understand what was being said, she knew the male was receiving quite the telling off. What happened next stunned Mrs. de Royston. She saw the male Bigfoot running back into the woods. The female Bigfoot turned around to look directly at Liz, with apology written in her treacle-coloured eyes. And in those eyes Liz observed a beautiful tenderness and kind compassion that made her want to cry with both thankfulness and relief. "Kolotani, sakwisha konoso, kila fina poloso." "My brother's a little deranged," the Bigfoot said apologetically. "Kila tika, tolofonso." He does crazy things off the cuff like this, for no rhyme or reason. Sometimes I don't understand his impulsiveness, but don't you worry. I will see to it that he won't disturb you again. I will keep a firm and beady eye on him. I'm sorry he caused you such disquiet this afternoon. And don't worry about the man he kicked over. All will be well with him." With that she glided into the woods and was gone. Liz de Royston was staring after the female Bigfoot when she heard her daughter scream, "Dad! Dad, for God's sake, wake up! Wake up!" She watched her daughter shaking her husband furiously, with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mum! Mum! Dad is dead!" Carrie cried out. "He won't wake up! He's dead! I think he's dead, Mum!" Liz hurriedly ran over to her daughter's side to inspect her husband, and both women began to shake Mr. de Royston vigorously hard. They could see his skin had paled of all colour, and appeared somewhat waxy, so they began to fear the very worst. It didn't appear that Eric de Royston had any obvious injuries, but his failure to move and respond to them, and Carrie's inability to find a pulse, made the two women panic. "He's dead!" she cried out to her mother again despairingly. "He's dead! Oh my God, that thing just killed him! Why did Dad go after him? He was no match for that creature, and now he's gone!" All of a sudden Eric de Royston opened his eyes. He looked slightly dazed and confused. He was definitely disorientated for a brief moment. He looked somewhat bemused as he looked up in the faces staring down at him. "Dad! Oh, what a relief! Oh, you scared the hell out of me, Dad! Oh, how could you do that? Are you all right? You are all right, aren't you? Nothing is hurting. You're not in pain, are you?" asked Carrie. "I'm fine. Don't panic. I don't feel any pain. What the hell happened?" asked Eric. "You don't remember, Dad? A male Bigfoot snatched me away and was running off with me on his shoulders. You took him on. How could you do that, Dad? He kicked you and you went rolling down the slope. For a moment, Mum and I thought you were dead. You gave us quite the scare. Look at me. I'm shaking all over like a leaf." Eric de Royston sat bolt upright. His eyes widened with alarm.
"Where is the Bigfoot?"
he asked nervously, as if he suddenly remembered everything that had transpired, and still felt that they were all in danger.
"Where is that Bigfoot? How on earth did you get away from him, Carrie? He was running away with you on his shoulders. I tried to take him on. I can't believe I actually caught up with him because he was running so fast. I was so afraid. I thought we'd never see you again, love,"
he said, his voice sounding dreadfully choked.
"It was a female Bigfoot that intervened. It was the Bigfoot's sister. She had a right go at him. She made her brother let Carrie go,"
said Liz de Royston.
"You won't believe it, but the creature talked to me, communicated with me telepathically, so I enigmatically understood everything she was saying. She was very kind and concerned about our welfare. She also said you would be fine. But when I saw the state of you, I very much doubted it. But turned out she was right. You are fine. She said this would never happen again, because she'd keep a careful, shrewd watch out over her brother. She said her brother was a little, well, what's the word? Demented and impulsive. Anyway, she said he was inclined to do things, not thinking of the repercussions, so to speak. So thanks to her kind, very fast intervention, Carrie was rescued, and you look like you will live as well, Eric. This female Bigfoot you encountered actually talked to you,"
said Eric de Royston, looking confounded. Both women nodded.
"She did," said Liz de Royston. "She was quite sweet for one so large. She said it won't happen again. I guess these human-like creatures are a lot like us, you know. And I suppose just like in our society, you get good ones and bad ones. Until now, I never believed that Bigfoot was real. But it turns out I was wrong about that. It seems I've got some apologies to make back at home. I had an argument one night with a woman who told me that Bigfoots were definitely real. I thought she was off her rocker. Now it turns out that I've got egg on my face. Anyway, this female Bigfoot was remarkably intelligent and incredibly apologetic. But I don't think her brother was all bad. Probably like most red-blooded men, he found our daughter incredibly attractive and couldn't resist. And can you blame him for that? I can't blame any man for believing our daughter is attractive. But do you realize we could have lost our Carrie? Said Eric. Why did this thing want her? That's what I'd like to know. What on earth would it have in common with a human woman? Well, I don't think it was nefarious. I think it was an impulsive thing. Well, I hope it wasn't nefarious anyway, said Mrs. de Royston matter-of-factly. That Bigfoot probably appreciated Carrie's good looks. Thank goodness his sister put him firmly in his place. I hasten to say he looked very sheepish when she lectured him. It would have been really funny if I hadn't been so dumbstruck. Never in a million years did I envisage this happening to us on a casual stroll through the wilderness. Never let it be said that our lives are boring. You could write a story about our family, couldn't you? And it would read like a thriller. I can see it in my mind's eye. The life and times of the de Royston family. It would be right up there, wouldn't it? With Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Only our story would not be fiction. Our story would be true.
You mean Leonardo dying mysteriously in a canal in Venice is part of this thriller you'd like to write about, said Carrie sarcastically. After all the time I spent in Venice, it was so awful, and you think it's all a mystery, like a novel or something. It's serious, Mum. How can you talk about things so casually like this? Sweetheart, don't take everything so personally. Isn't it all right for me to inject a little humour into something? No, it's not all right. You shouldn't talk like this. Sweetheart, calm down, said Mr. de Royston. I have a confession to make in regards to your fiancé Leonardo, and I might as well tell you about it now. Eric, said Mrs. de Royston, I don't think this is a good idea. You know how tender our daughter is. Some things are best not discussed. You don't want to go upsetting Carrie any more than she is already. Carrie grew rigid, her face drained of all colour, her eyes widened. Now, what have you got to tell me? What's going on, Dad? I'm not going to rest until you tell me exactly what's going on. What do you know about Leonardo?
What confession have you got to make? Sweetheart, you know very well I never took to Leonardo, from the very moment you brought him to see us, when he joined us for dinner that night. Me and your mother never trusted the man. Tell me something I don't know, Dad. You made that blindingly obvious. You were so unwelcoming to him. You were awful to him, actually. You made your dislike very, very clear. Well, when you phoned us up in Italy, me and your mother were exceedingly worried that you were going to get married to Leonardo behind our back. Oh, I see. So you decided you were going to stop the wedding, were you? Was that the plan? Is that why you came to Italy? No, love, if you must know. Me and your mother flew to Italy because if you were clandestinely going to marry Leonardo, we wanted to be there for you. I wanted to have the privilege of giving you away. You are my only daughter. We may have not liked the man, but if you wanted to marry him, we were going to support you every step of the way, because that's what we do. We're family. Well, that's a relief to know, Carrie said sarcastically. I told you, didn't I, on the telephone, in Venice, that I would never have married Leonardo without your being present at the ceremony. But I know this already. So what exactly are you confessing to? Mr. de Royston sat up, bolt upright, crossing his legs, while Carrie and her mother sat on the ground beside him, straddling their legs close to their chest, as they listened to what Eric de Royston had to say. Well, it's a bit of a story, actually. I found out from Gabriella, Leonardo's sister, that Leonardo is a very, very dangerous man, and I don't take that lightly when I hear something like that. Oh, that's nonsense, Dad, said Carrie defensively. Gabriella's lying. She's probably just jealous of Leonardo. She wasn't jealous of her brother. She fell out with him because he tried to kill her. To kill her? Said Carrie. I don't believe a word of it. He'd never do that. I told you she's a liar. Don't be so quick, love, to dismiss what Gabriella told me. If you must know, I believed every word of it. She was 17 years old at the time when this happened. The two siblings had a fight. She had an asthmatic attack during the fight, and Leonardo took her inhaler away from her and told her he was going to watch her die. It was her parents returning home that saved the day, as Leonardo felt compelled to give back her inhaler. But Gabriella said if they had not returned home, she is almost certain she would be dead. Anyway, she told us that during her life, Leonardo was unhinged. He had an explosive temper on him. He would lock her up in the shed and pull her hair regularly. He claimed he wanted to see her die, so when their parents passed away, he could inherit all the wealth for himself. My God, said Carrie, throwing her hands over her head. You think this is true? You really believe this, Dad? I do, I'm afraid, love. When I spoke to Leonardo in your hotel room that night, when I asked to speak to him in private, if you remember, after I had arrived in Venice, and that was the evening before you contacted us to tell us Leonardo was missing. I didn't want you to marry Leonardo because I didn't trust him an inch, especially after what Gabriella had told me. So I decided to offer him a lot of money, in order for him to break up with you. And on the phone call, we agreed to meet up with each other and arrange everything. I remember how he looked, Dad, when he came out of the bathroom after speaking with you on the phone. He looked so happy, like he'd won the jackpot. I remember remarking about it. I'd never seen him look so happy before. So he was excited because you offered him money, is that it? I would imagine so. Oh, I feel like I'm going to be sick, Dad. I feel as if I'm going to throw up. I can't believe you're saying all this. Calm down, love. Needless to say, your fiancé wanted a lot of money to break up with you, which I was able to get from my brother, because as you very well know, Earl is a self-made millionaire many times over. When I told my brother what was going on with you, and that his beloved niece was in serious trouble, he was happy to give Leonardo over $1 million, more if it was needed. I asked Leonardo to meet up with me to discuss bank account details and so forth, and so we agreed to have a rendezvous together at a local wine bar, not far from the Serafina de Marco, where your fiancé was last seen, when he went to collect his credit card. We had a glass of wine together at the local bar, and I agreed by the morning I would have transferred the funds into his account.
Are you telling me that my Leonardo was willing to dump me to end our relationship if you gave him a ton of money? Is that what you're saying? Is that all I meant to him?
I'm afraid so, love. I'm very sorry. I know it's not what you want to hear, but it is what it is. Now you know what Leonardo was really like. He wasn't interested in you because he loved you. As his sister Gabriella says, he's not capable of loving anyone. The only person he was in love with was himself. Gabriella said you were exactly his type. The auburn hair, the blue eyes, the fair skin. He was totally captivated by you. But as for loving you, she told me that it was very unlikely that he did.
Why the hell didn't you tell me all this before, Dad? You mean to tell me I've been grieving over a prize cad? I feel like such a prize idiot. You were right about him all along, Dad. But you didn't have anything to do with his death, did you? Asked Carrie, growing suddenly very cold. You wouldn't have killed him, would you, Dad? You didn't do it, did you?
I'm surprised you asked such a question of me, Carrie. You know me better than that. No, of course I never killed him.
But then who did? Asked Carrie. Was it his business partner? There was no love lost between the two of them. I wonder if he was in Italy at the time. I don't know if the police investigated that or not.
I can tell you unequivocally, love, that his business partner did not kill him, although I gather from Gabriella that his business partner had nothing to do with siphoning funds from the company. Leonardo was the one who stole all the money, and I think his luxurious lifestyle was certainly witness to that.
My God! How could I have fallen in love with such a loser, such a cheat, such a fraud? Said Carrie. So if the business partner didn't kill him, who do you think did?
Mr. de Royston went as white as a sheet. Well, if you must know, I followed Leonardo after we'd met up at the wine bar. I'm not sure why I did. That was when I saw him meeting up with another man in Venice. Now, I had no idea who this man was at the time, but I now know who he is.
You never told me this part of the story, love, said Liz de Royston, looking visibly disturbed.
I guess I was getting my head around what I physically saw that night. I soon established the man was in fact Gabriella's fiancé, a man called Irwin White. The two men were arguing, caught up in a brawl, so to speak. I heard Irwin say, "Don't you dare go anywhere near my sister. I know what you did. She told me all about it. You tried to kill her by taking away her inhaler, and that's unforgivable. I know what you are like, so keep away from her." The argument, of course, continued for a long while, and then both men began to fight like cat and dog. And for a while it looked serious like Leonardo was going to get the upper hand and actually kill Irwin White. I wouldn't have put it past him. I was wondering whether I should intervene. But all of a sudden Leonardo fell backwards, hitting his head on a rocky surface. It was by the canal. And as I watched, Irwin frantically tried to wake up Leonardo. But it was clear, in a heartbeat to me, that Leonardo was a goner. He was already dead. He must have damaged some part of his head, I suppose. As I watched, Irwin visibly panicked. I watched him throwing the body into the canal. Then he ran away. He probably told Gabriella all about what happened. But none of this was his fault. It was a tragic accident. And certainly if Leonardo had not attacked him when they were having a conversation, none of this would have happened.
And you did not tell the police about this? Asked Liz de Royston, looking perturbed.
No, of course I didn't tell the police, love. For many reasons. One of them being that Gabriella is very much in love with Irwin White, and the two of them are going to get married. She's been through enough with her brother already. Irwin was a victim here as far as I'm concerned. Leonardo very nearly killed him. But he was the one that started the fight in the first place. It was unfortunate for Leonardo that he fell backwards and hit his head. I think he slipped on a wet stone or something. Who knows? I imagine Irwin White panicked and fled. but I understand he's a very good man, and the way I see it, it was self-defense. So all I can say is thank God the case is finally closed. This world is a better place without Leonardo in it as far as I'm concerned. Too many people have suffered because of that man."
Carrie threw her arms around her father. "Oh, Dad, what'd you do for me to save me from myself? You almost gave up your life for me today. I'm the luckiest girl in the world to have parents like the both of you, that watch out for me like this." It would seem the de Royston family came together, stronger than ever after this event, and they look back on that week spent in the Alaskan wilderness as an experience that they will never forget. So there you are. That's my story.
Well, what can I say? That was an incredible story.
Well, hello there. I hope you enjoyed the Omnibus edition. We've got many more coming our way for you to listen to. Sending you love wherever you are in the world, in North America, Canada, Kenya, wherever you may be. I send you lots and lots of love. Thank you for listening to my Omnibus, and I really do hope you enjoyed it, because that's the whole idea about it, is to give you some interesting stories to listen to. So until next time, goodbye and good night.